Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. I think it was Jim Carrey that said it. Sometimes he wishes that people could have everything that they want so they could realise it's not going to make them happy. Do you know what I mean? It's always that quote. And I did that with motorbikes, with cars. I had lots of nice cars. I did it with businesses. Some were really successful. Wow. Some were less successful. Some we sold. Some we kept. Some we're still doing now. But after I reached the precipice of whatever each one was, most of the time, other than this one, I realised that it didn't particularly fulfill me in anything. It was just another route to money, really. Yeah. I mean, training people and coaching people was great. I did that for like 10 years. But then I very quickly realised, and nothing wrong with that, is that without you, it doesn't work. And I think that's probably a handicap on my part because I like to be close to the coalface. Do you know what I mean? I like to feel the heat. I like to be near the thing. And I have that within the organisation that I work for now in the fire service, in that I don't want to progress any further because the next step for me is moving off the fire engines. I'm a watch commander now, and when I become a station commander, I don't ride the fire engines no more. I don't do the thing.
The thing that...
I don't think I want to do that. But before I was always used to be like, oh, I'd love to be a chief fire officer. And now I'm like, I don't know.
Yes, doesn't hit the same things that
At this point in my life. At this point in my life.
Yeah.
Right, should we kick it off? Brad, welcome to the Firefighters podcast. How you doing, my friend?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm genuinely really excited to be here, so thank you.
Mate, it was really interesting to have you down because I know we connected a little while ago through yourself and so you thought that the rescue fit and functional fitness. And as I started to learn more and more about you, I was speaking to my brother-in-law because he's a paramedic as well. I'm really fascinated in learning more about that sector first and foremost, but like seeing the other side of the coin in, like, you know, we're all on the same team, fire, police, paramedics, and all that sort of stuff, but I think we do such a different job as well. Do you know what I mean? When did you first sort of want to get into being a paramedic? What sort of first excited you to do that?
The first time, I'm going to start with a shocker. I never wanted to be a paramedic. I've told this a couple of times, this kind of, this shocker.
Mate, it's surprising with a lot of firefighters, chief firefighters, they were like, I just fell into it.
It's a little bit of a cliche, but going back, things always go back to your parents. For me, I'd just come off kind of the back of a career of outdoor instructing, so kind of rock climbing, kayaking, things like that. And I left that career because of a couple of things that just weren't sitting right. So I come back home, moved back in with parents.
How old would you have been then?
I was, I think, about 25, 26.
Yeah.
So, you know, mid-20s, still kind of thinking, you know, I want to enjoy these 20s. But there was something in me that felt like I need to get my teeth into something. And I need a sense of belonging. I need a sense of kind of purpose. Again, lots of cliche interview type words, but it really was. I'd got home after that, you know, almost kind of a 7-year excursion as a kind of outdoor instructor, and there was something I needed to do, something missing. Yeah. And my mum said, "Oh, why don't you go and be a paramedic?" And I said, "No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go and, you know, deal with sick people, ill people, people that are not having a good time. Where I've just spent 7 years trying to provide people with a great experience." So suddenly the thought of, you know, dealing with people that aren't having a good time completely kind of was not on my radar at all. So I guess, how did I eventually get there?
Well, how did you get into the outdoor stuff? Because that honestly really fascinated me as a kid. I did loads of scouting, and my dad and my mum ran a scout group for ages. Yeah. And now I do like UK International Search and Rescue. So we do so much of that. Yeah, you know, it's outdoor grappling and climbing and all that sort of stuff. But I always thought I would love to have done like an instructing course when I was a kid. Yeah. What made you get into that?
That is a fantastic industry, and it's such a great place to go and spend some time in. Again, there's reasons why I left that, but I was 19, so kind of left school halfway through a bit of college, and a really similar thing. I was just not where I wanted to be, and there was something missing. And
what were you doing at college?
College, I did music for a couple of years straight after school.
Cool.
So long hair, really long hair,
Well, like really long hair.
Like shoulder length. I'll find a picture later.
Nice.
Really long hair into what some people would call grungy emo music, but kind of like deep metal stuff. And that was great. But then, there's only a certain point that will take you if you're
What did you
not
want to do?
focused
were
on.
you in a band or?
Well, yeah, been in a band. College band, long hair, bass guitar, playing on stage. That was amazing.
Yeah.
But it got to a bit where, because I was studying music at the time, that kind of bit became a bit of a chore. So suddenly the passion, the hobby became a bit of a chore. And although we had a great kind of band that we played in, there was just something not there that was going to last a long time. And I think with a band, I'm assuming to last a long time, you need to have such a strong connection that needs to hold you through the bad times. So we didn't quite have that, but it was an amazing experience.
That's the analogy of like the 10-year success, isn't it? Because most of the time you're doing it for absolutely nothing, less than nothing. It is a lifestyle sector, for want of a better. And I say that with respect, because out of the end, the very few number of people that pop through that narrow gap at the end, I'm sure it's great. I'm sure they still have their challenges, but how many millions? And that's not to discourage anybody that's trying to go for it, but I think
100%.
it is a passion. It's built on passion.
Yeah.
And then if you make your passion your job, or you make your passion what you do you think that starts to dwindle it perhaps, or start dampen that flame a little bit?
It's that gynecologist scenario, isn't it? Does a gynecologist want to go home and
do the business?
A little bit of that, yeah. I mean, it was great at the time, and I think you're right. If you have a really strong foundation of why you're there, if you've got prospects for the future, how are you going to achieve that? We were young, 18,
Plus, I bet a band is an absolute mayhem to the politics of a group or a band, and we're not going to name any names, but the greatest of respect to the people you're probably with. Was there a little bit of that, or was that all cool? Was it just everyone was great? Or?
Although we were 18, we were just children, really. Still young.
Mate,
we got kind of through college, and there was one guy who was a little bit older, because it was like it wasn't just everyone straight from school. We had kind of other ages trying to become musicians. We had this older guy who was the lead singer, and he was holding us together as long as he could. But
how much older was he?
Only by like 3 or 4 years, maybe. But
it wasn't like some 40-year-old dude.
No, I wasn't like a 40-year-old trying to tell us what to do.
But the School of Rock thing, it's a great film. I love it. But you got to be. If that was in real life, that'd be weird.
Yeah,
that would
totally
not. It's not going to work.
Police come in halfway through the film. I think they would have come in a little bit earlier.
Hey folks, I wanted to jump in here and just share with you a really exciting update from our partner William Wood Watches. They are launching the first ever field watch collection. Now it's named Fearless, which firstly, I absolutely love, and this new collection is very different from anything they've ever launched before. However, you will see that they've managed to maintain some of the signature William Wood watch elements. The big thing for me is that black fire hose. So they have got, the first ever time they've done this, the black fire hose strap, and a really, really cool case back. So now the watches are available in 3 colors this time. These are red, orange, which is my favorite, and the yellow. Each watch features those straps that are made up from repurposed black fire hose. That stuff looks the absolute bee's knees, guys. They've never done that one before, so go and take a look at that. And they've also got a textured dial to represent charcoal. Honestly, I never know how they're going to keep going deeper with this. Every time they do, I'm like, where are they getting this from? But I know where they're getting it from, because they're speaking to the boots on the ground. They're speaking to you, they're speaking to me, they're speaking to firefighters and frontline operators, and getting just these amazing insights. The creativity in this is amazing. Now, the case has come down in size from 41mm to 40mm. And another new thing is they've got a unique firefighter helmet visor case back. So flip it on the back. In fact, go over to the website and you'll see the photos. That visor case back, guys, it just looks absolutely incredible. Now, the watches are available to buy immediately, like right now, and they can be delivered within 24 hours in the UK and 48 hours from UPS collection in the US. The link to William Wood Watches is in the notes below this episode. You will not regret it. I am 100% putting this on my list. I'm going to be nagging them like crazy, because I know you can pay in 3 stages as well. You haven't got to go in full whack on this. The new Fearless collection, William Wood Watches. Go check it out.
He was holding us together. He did the best that he could, and we had a great time. But we weren't, I guess, in the right state of mind to think this has got to be a business. Really, you've got to think money strategy, either for hiring studios, for a kit, for travelling. And
Contracts. You got to make
weren't
agreements together. You got to actually write shit down. You know, I know there's some massive businesses that make it places and don't have any agreements in place, but I've had to learn those lessons 3 times to the tune of you know, well, 5 figures on one of them, and that, you know, that hurts when you have to learn those lessons. So I always say to people, as much as you're bonding with everybody and your best mates and this, just write it down. Just write it down. And to be fair, if you're both on the same page, nobody's going to mind. No one's going to mind. It's protect everybody. You know what I mean? Write it down. But sorry, so you went from that into the outdoor stuff. You did outdoors for like 5-6 years then.
Yeah. So after I was after the music, I was working in Halfords. And again, you know, retail sector, some people that have worked in that industry know what it's like. And again, I was just stacking shelves, thinking something's got to fall into my lap. That's not really the best way to think of things. Something's going to land on my lap. You need to go out and search for things. But I was really lucky enough that an old school friend dropped in and said, oh, there's this course where you do outdoor instructing. And part of me thought that sounds so easy. You just got to go learn about kayaking, rock climbing, and you just, that's your life. You just kind of live that. It sounds amazing. Yeah. And then the other side was, well, I get to teach that to other people, and not only do I get to learn myself how to do these awesome things, but I get to pass it on. That sounds amazing. So off I went to college again, a little bit older than everyone else because I'd already gone to college before, but those kind of 2 years learning how to do those amazing things was great. And then I just got a job as, you know, kind of halfway through that college experience, and I think I stayed there 4 or 5 years. Then I did some private instructing, some kind of freelance stuff.
What does that look like? Is that like with little groups or one-to-ones? Or?
It was mainly with groups. So the bulk of your first experience as a kind of outdoor instructor is family groups that come in for the day, or school groups that come for the day, and they kind of do 4 activities during the day, say high ropes, kayaking, archery, quad biking. That would be like a normal day. Nice. So I mean, that sounds amazing, doesn't it, to just go and do that for a living? And it was great, you know, that kind of young 20
It always
days.
does to an extent, and I know you're going to want to jump in onto you, but like when we come on to talking about fitness and things like that, the illusion of something and then the reality of it. And that's what we spoke about before we came out with these chapters of life. Doing something, enjoying it, and then knowing when it's time to leave the party is a really different thing for people. But you loved it for a while, I'm guessing. Yeah,
100%. You know, 5 years with one company, and then I did some freelancing with like the local councils, and then my last, I want to call it a tour, though it's not a kind of military tour. My last tour of service was going to Cornwall, which was completely crazy. I never left kind of Hampshire at all, really.
Yeah.
Went to Cornwall to work for a company down there. And that was amazing. Lived in Newquay. You can imagine the kind of stuff.
I was always going to do a lifeguard in summer at Newquay because I was a lifeguard. I never went and did it. I was annoying myself a little bit for that because I think it'd be a great place to do a summer.
The summer was great. You know, sun, sea, girls, outdoor instructing. It was great. It was fantastic. But I guess there's a small theme that will run through my life up until here, that it covers it for a little while, and then, you know, something is missing a little bit. So I need to kind of either change something with that job or fill it with something else. And I guess it's a bit like spinning plates, where you're trying to keep up with lots of different things, and at some point you're not going to the end one, and that's dropping off, and you think, right, well, if that's happening, I need to think about getting rid of that plate and putting another one in.
What were your parents like with all this sort of stuff? Were they, because you were actually doing shit, you know, you weren't just like sitting around at home, you didn't not have no job, you know, which I think is becoming more of a problem with some of the younger members of our communities these days. And that's not a generalism, but I think it's harder because like you and I would have had jobs. I mean, I had a job when I was 11 and then paper rounding and then blah, 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 blah. You don't see people getting jobs now until like 16, 17, 18.
Yeah, you know,
and
they still don't want to have a job.
Yeah. And also they see adults that don't have jobs. So they can see a feasible...
And then they're surviving.
Yeah. So they're like, well, maybe it's not an essential thing. And that worries me. But that wasn't... I mean, there would have been happening around you at that time, though. Because, you know, when we were kids, there were people like that. But there didn't seem as much.
Yeah.
I didn't think like it was much.
No, I mean,
maybe just more aware of
that was that lifestyle, like kind of musician-y lifestyle. But once you do that, and once you become in a band, you realise that, oh, actually, we need to work for this. We need to earn money to survive it. So it was a bit like a false sense of like an idea, really. It was oh, we could do this and just, you know, live off it. But unless you're bringing things in, then you
can live as like a mid-level like partially successful musician and do wedding gigs and do, you know, one of the guys used to live next to me. He does like 80k a year, you know, and he just does weddings, does them international and all that sort of stuff. Great. You know, he's made a couple of albums. Nothing's ever really popped, but that's what he does, and he does it and he enjoys it. But he does say, you know, every gig's not, you know, it's not Wembley. You know, some people don't want to listen to you. Some people think you're great. Sometimes you turn up and they cancel. You know, that's life, and that's that maturity aspect when you've got to treat it like a job. You've got to be professional. You've got to show up and do the best version of yourself, even if you turn up and you hate the people. That's their job. Sometimes.
If you can do something that you really love and enjoy doing, then earn money from it. Yeah. And then just before you think, oh, actually, I'm not enjoying this now. If you can somehow find a way every, I don't know, maybe 3 or 5 years to stir things up a little bit and suddenly go, oh, I'm really enjoying this again, then I think that's really key. Because what you don't want to happen is have a 20-year or, you know, a 5-year honeymoon period of, wow, this job's amazing. And then 15, 20 years of, it's not feeling the right things.
But you know what? I think people think that is what it's supposed to be like, though. And maybe some people genuinely is, because I'm not them, and I can't, and it'd be wrong for me to assume that they're not going for it, or actually, maybe they're just not hungry enough, maybe they're just not whatever. Well, actually, you know, maybe maybe they really do like that, because I think that desire to want to do more things, that desire to move on to different chapters of your life, can also be a bit torturous, certainly to those people around you. If you're with somebody who's like, can't you just settle? Can't you just like stop rocking the boat? Why do you always have to keep doing something new? Yeah. I'm so lucky that my partner seems to like just go with it, or she just lets me. I don't really know how it works, to be fair, but and she had a difficult relationship before me, so I think I'm just like the better version. You know, when the bar's set really low, it's like, and I'm sure I treat her very nicely, but it must be torturous for people around you. But I can't imagine those that, like, you look at them like they're a different person. You know better than them. I'm no better or worse than them, but I'm like, I don't get it. Why? How can you do that? And you see people doing that. And again, retail is a perfect example. You know, I'm sure some people absolutely love retail. It's very one-to-one. It's, you know, you're always speaking with people. You're adding value in a way.
Moving. You're not sat at a desk.
But I'm people. Like, it just doesn't. I don't believe anybody grows up wanting to be working retail. I don't know. And maybe that's harsh. That probably is very harsh.
I think you've got to say these kind of things every now and again, because there's some great people in the world, and you know,
we need people to do it.
It's got to be done.
Someone's got to deliver them out.
And people that are doing that kind of job, they're providing for their family, which is probably the most important thing, especially if you've got kids, that you can probably think of, is providing food, shelter, warmth, love, and food and stuff.
And you know, if they're actually happy, I probably admire them in a way.
Yeah, if you're content, great.
Because I don't think I'm content very much.
Ignorance is bliss. If you're content, you don't want to do anything else, which is great. But if you're probably like myself or yourself, you are content, and then it's like, right, next challenge, next thing, keep going.
It's the difference between the person that like builds the Lego thing and does it with like super glue and then puts it on the side, then buys a new one. I'm like, build it right now, smash it apart, and let's do something else. You just spent 3 hours building that. Yeah, but we've built it now. Take a picture if you want to, and then they'll build another one, and they're like, oh no, I'll be to some people's houses, and they have like. They have them on the mantles, don't they?
Yeah, I've been to houses.
One of my friends, firefighter, funnily enough, he's got all of the like firefighter little ones, and then he's got a Death Star, and he's got all this stuff, and I'm like, dude, what if you like try to mix them all up? And he looked at me like I'd
create something.
And he was like, don't ever fucking do that. You know, don't. I was like, take them all apart, put them in a bag, and then just try and make something. He's like.
So are they glued in case they fall off? I mean, there's a great analogy or a metaphor or something that you can create there. Is either you build yourself a Lego model and you put it on a shelf and it stays there and you're content and happy, or someone accidentally knocks it off and it breaks onto the floor. Some of it survives, some of it doesn't, and you think, well, I'm either going to leave it on the floor or I'm going to make something else out of it. And the choice has got to be, I need to clear it up, make something else out of it. You put it together, either you make something better or you make something that isn't as good. If it's not as good, you take it apart again, you keep going. And that I think is a great idea.
So many people get forced into that, like you said about creation. They get forced into creation. And I always hear, or I often hear when I hear about somebody going on to doing something they absolutely love or they're really passionate about. And I say, how did you get into it? And they go, I lost my job in this, or I lost my job in that. And I'm like, oh, so this wasn't an intentional decision. You know, either you move or life moves on you.
Yeah.
Life is going to push you in a direction because you've got to have some sort of plan for what you're doing. If you don't have a plan, life will make a plan for you. And guess what? Life's got a plan for you. Not a lot sometimes, unless you
and if
actually
you don't,
get out there
if
and
you
do
don't
it.
have a good plan, or if you don't have an idea when you are pushed off a shelf, then you're either going to stay on the floor, and you need help back up, or you pick yourself up and think of something to do. Which I guess coming back to where did I, after Newquay, what happened? I needed a job. I was signing on to the dole, which my parents said,
that?
I don't know, it's not enough. It's enough to keep you going, but I guess there's a question there. If it
must
is
be
enough,
too much.
If it's
because
enough,
people do it.
If it's enough to sustain you, then you're not going to want to go and get another job.
Where's the drive? Yeah,
there's no drive. But my parents said, look, if you're back here, you've already paid into national insurance and tax and stuff, but part of that money is yours to help you back on your feet. I thought that's fair. That's pretty good reasoning.
Works.
But I was like, well, I need to get a job, and if they're making me look for jobs while I'm getting this job seekers, I might as well look for a job that I want to do and then try and get it. It seems
So
like
how old
right.
you'd been 25, 24,
yeah, about
25?
26, I think it was when I'd come back from Newquay. After 7 odd years.
You must have had a cool like teenage years and 20s then.
Yeah, I felt great.
Skip that.
I felt, I'm doing this crazy cool job. I get to kayak and rock climb all the time. What's better?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's better is having money that can sustain you, where you can have a car, have a house, and do cool stuff. Because that's the only problem with that industry for most people, is that you're minimum wage, or you're on a little bit more than minimum wage. Which when you're drinking afterwards and you're having fun doing those activities, and it's all about social stuff, that's fine. That's all you need. But when you get to kind of mid-20s, you can think, hang on a minute, at some point I will need a house, or I'll need to rent a house. I need a car. I guess it's because that's what we're meant to do. You're meant to have a house, you're meant to have a car, you're meant to do this and that. And I know that doesn't sound quite right when we sit and look at each other about it.
We're sat in my house now. We've got a couple of cars, a couple of businesses, and all that sort of jazz. So I've made not the same mistake. I've done that.
Yeah.
But I'm also, like we said before we came on, like when you're the other side of it, I'm like, are these things essential? Do I need these things? Because a lot of people will work in a job they don't enjoy to be able to afford to go and do an adventure weekend in Newquay twice a year, 3 times a year. That'll be one of their things. And if somebody said, hey, you could do this every day, just give up the stuff you don't like anyway, that you actually you're doing a job to perpetuate a life you don't enjoy, to 2% of the time go and do the thing you want to do. So I don't know. I can't speak from the other side, so I don't know.
I guess it's a choice. At some point, you go, either I keep living this life, or I want to change. And I think I had made the change and I tried it once before in that industry. I'm going to go off and do an office job and do that, earn more money, wear a suit, drive to work, blah, blah, blah. And that didn't work out. And I came back to that industry thinking, I need to stay here. And it didn't work because I wasn't very good at it. I think mainly I'd come from a complete outdoor industry, and then I was thrown into a job where I needed to write emails, talk to people, look presentable, go and explain things. But that job itself was a little bit about marketing and selling things. And although I could talk to someone, and that's partly why I think they hired me, because I can talk and engage with people, I didn't have the right attributes to sell something that I didn't believe in. And I don't want to sell anything that I don't believe in. Yeah. Which may bring us on to Rescue Fit later, is that I want to provide a service, take money from someone to give them something I really, really believe in. Yeah. So, the real strong purpose with that. But that's why I didn't succeed in that other job, is it was a change of pace, and I thought, well, at least I've tried it. Great, I've tried something, failed at it, didn't do very well, come back to this other job. But I guess bring us back to why do I think I needed that? I guess it was just a choice. It was like, either I'm going to continue doing this, not have that much money, but really enjoy it, or I mix things up a bit and see what is out there. I did it for 7 years, outdoor instructing. Is there anything else? But I tell you what did happen is I kept working for people that weren't very nice people. They were nice to your face, and they were relatively nice to the customers and things. But I had a couple of issues where I was working with someone, or I was making someone money that wasn't very nice. Okay. And suddenly I thought, I'm working my ass off, hour on hour, 10-hour days, 12-hour days. The clients were great. The participants, the kids, the families, they're amazing. It was an absolute pleasure. But I'm earning someone else money that isn't that nice to me. Why would I do that?
In what way?
I guess managerial skills, leadership skills, the way they ran the business. I mean, I don't want to be too harsh, and there's no chance of me naming names, but I felt personally that I was earning someone else money that wasn't being very nice, and okay. I'm on a minimum wage or near minimum wage as an outdoor instructor, because let's face it, it's a great job, everyone wants to do it. And although you have to be trained in that skill, it's not a degree level qualification, it's not a long-term thing. So I felt like I wanted to work for someone that either myself, which would have been too difficult at that time, or someone that is giving back to others. And thankfully, I landed in the NHS, which, although I guess we have taxpayers and the government, there's no one. I'm not earning someone money. I'm not making someone money. It's a non-profit business. Yeah. So I'm really thankful that I spent the last 10 years or 9 years working for people in general, rather than this one person or these two people or these board members that are raking all the money in.
So what was the journey like into becoming a paramedic?
Yes, so back to after Newquay, Mum says you need to go on the dole. I say yes, and then I might as well apply for jobs that look interesting, and up crops on the job seekers website is emergency care assistant, or ACA emergency, or emergency care assistant, or ambulance care assistant. And I thought, well, that sounds cool. This is relatively minimum wage, but that means it's an entry option for me, and it sounds pretty cool. So I could do that for a year or so until I find what I want to do. I didn't really want to do what my mum said, because she always knows best. Do you ever find that, where you have parents or people that you think, no, I don't think you know what you're talking about, and then a couple of months later,
sometimes. So yeah, sometimes they definitely know best. I've found in my personal experiences with people close to me and my family, they're scared to death of you messing something up, scared to death of you making a big mistake that's going to cost you. And I've already alluded to some of the misjudgments and mistakes I've made with business partners and things like that. And they worry about you, especially if they've not done it, like starting a business or something like that. If they've not done it, and I hadn't done it at those points, it's scary. You might mess it up. You might go to jail. You might go to court if you do something really bad. Yeah. You might lose your house. You might do all of these crazy things. And they just want to keep you safe. And it does come from a place of love most of the time. Sometimes, very rarely, I've seen it come from jealousy. Not in my own family, but with parents who will discourage their children from doing something because they never did it. And there's almost a venom. I've seen it in some people where they're like, they wanted to do that. Don't you dare try and do it, basically. But they would say it in ways of they just try and put the person down. You can't do it. You haven't got a chance. You're not mathematically minded. You're not very good with people. All these sorts of things. I've heard these said. This was to a business partner that I used to have, and they really struggled with that self-belief. Really, really struggled with it. But what was the way in which your mum was right in some way? I'm guessing by the sounds of it.
Say again, sorry.
She was right in some way.
Yeah. So she said, "Why don't you be a paramedic?" I said, "That sounds terrible. I'm not going to do that." Then I saw...
Why did it sound terrible?
Because, as I said earlier about spending so much time providing people with good experiences, suddenly I'd be sent to someone that is having their worst day of their life, and I'd have to deal with that. It wasn't fitting in with my mantra of have a good time all the time. Yeah. Which at 26, you want to have a good time all the time. But it come up on the job advert, and I thought, well, I could do that. Sounds pretty cool. I'd say I'm a kind of fan of the emergency services. I'm always kind of pro police, fire, ambulance, and Coast Guard.
I think most people are.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Maybe not the police sometimes. People don't like the police, which is sad. Yeah. I really struggle thinking about the police because I don't know how they're going to... They're going to keep it going, but I'm like...
I'll defend...
they do such a hard job.
Yeah.
Such a goddamn hard job.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys experienced some violence actually in the job, which really surprises me.
Yeah, the abuse rates are going up, I think.
Yeah, worryingly. I never get it. I don't get it why they're that way, because we go to jobs for like gain entry for you guys and girls.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, oh, do you want to sort of hang around? And some crews are like, that's not our job. You need to call the police. But I'm whatever. I'm a 6'5" big guy. And I'm like, yeah, of course. You know, I'm not really, I'm not a fighter, but I'm like, yeah, we'll hang around. Yeah, Christ. Yeah, that dude does look a bit weird. And maybe it's two female paramedics. And I know that shouldn't matter, but I live in the real world. And I'm like, yeah, let's hang around for a little bit. And some people, just get really... They don't get nasty with us, though. And I don't think that's because I'm big or strong or intimidating or any of that.
Yeah.
I just generically don't hear that they get nasty with us.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you guys and girls get that level of violence towards you. It's worrying.
I'm not sure, and I'm lucky now that I'm in a specialist unit that we don't kind of we're not prone to it very much. But you know, my other half is in the ambulance service. She's working. She's on maternity at the moment, but you know, that's her job. That is her scope of practice is to respond on her own sometimes to a house where there might be all kinds of things going on. And she's had knives pulled out on her. She's had people threatening abuse, attack, and you know, abuse, although it comes in many forms, it is still there where ambulance service personnel are exposed to violent and aggressive and intimidating people, which is wrong. It is wrong. I guess you've got to think, well, you know, they're having a mental health crisis or they're under the effects of alcohol and things. I guess it's a case by case thing sometimes where you've got to assess, right, these people are having an issue, whether they're being abusive or not, they are still having a problem, which you know someone's got to go in and fix.
I find it's usually the ones where it's a cry for help. I think it's the ones where they like attempt to take their own life and things like that. They're the ones I've seen be most aggressive. People that have genuinely hurt themselves.
They're on the edge of existence, to be honest. If they're ready to end their own life, they don't care about what. The only thing they're cared about is the fact they're stuck in this place and they don't want to be there anymore. So I can kind of sympathise a little bit, but when it's your other half who has a knife pulled on her, suddenly you can't sympathise. So it's a thing that shouldn't happen. It does. I'm sure there's ways that we can work as an emergency service community to reduce these things, like body cameras. I'd wear a body camera 100%.
I would.
If it works to convict someone, if it works to even if it's not to convict, even if that footage is providing someone else an example of what this person can do, and they get more help for it, or for training purposes, great.
Yeah, I'd film all of our incidents, but some people get really worried about it. There's some crazy some people in the fire service think like everyone's out to get them and upper management's going to try and sack everybody, and I'm like, no, I don't buy that. And conversations that I've had around body worn cams is that the footage, it's up to you whether or not you want to use it. Now, if it was in a criminal investigation, yes, you wouldn't have that option. But if you go to a generic incident where nothing bad's happened, if someone slips off the bottom of the ladder or they put something up wrong or they made a mistake, well, then you just don't submit it if you don't have trust in your organisation. But if no one's actually got hurt, if we don't submit that, we're just not painting over it because it's actually genuinely has happened. If someone's made a mistake, let's learn from it. Let's learn from it collectively so that it doesn't turn into something tragic. But your police wear body-worn cams all the time, don't they?
Yes, I think the ambulance service has been given some funding in certain areas, so I think it's just a matter of time before we all are given body-worn cameras.
I'd love to have them.
Which I personally haven't got a problem with it. And the fact of the matter is, every single person in this, mostly in this country, has a phone, and all they're going to do is pull it out and film it, and then it's filmed anyway. So I think the fact that something is going to be filmed in the next 20 years,
you're better off having
it's going to be there
control
anyway.
of that and being part of the narrative, as in you've got your own recording. Because, like I say, we pull up to instance, everyone pulls the phone out, not like on the truck.
And what are they going to use? They're going to use the 20 seconds where an emergency service worker is a little bit irate, a little bit frustrated.
Well, you turn around and push somebody back behind the cordon so they don't get hurt.
But you haven't seen the 3 minutes.
Everyone else is like, oh, firefighter pushes somebody past the curb. And you're like, to get them away from the falling glass. Yeah,
so it's better to have that full 10-minute rather than the 20 seconds.
100%. Anyway, I digress. So what was the route like getting into it? What sort of stuff did you have to do? Did you start as not an EMT, but as a care assistant?
So an ACA, so an ambulance care assistant. although it's a really worthwhile job, for me personally, I saw that as the bottom rung of what could be a really established career. So that was with a private service, and that was driving people to hospital appointments. So it's non-emergency, they call it patient transport service, PTS. So non-emergency trips to and from hospital, physio appointments. But
a private organisation?
The one I work for was private.
There's loads of them now.
So it depends where you work, whether or not they have the contract. And this brings us to the NHS, although it's not a kind of, because it isn't, I guess, a private entity, the NHS has got to be shown that it's taking other options. So if a private service says, oh, we can do that for cheaper, although we're private, we can work for you. And if we're doing something cheaper, then we can do it. So that's what's starting to crop up now, is more and more private services.
Loads of it. Because it is cheap, because you haven't got on board the staff. You've not got all the HR, you've not got all the pensions, you've not got all of that. You've not got the legal requirements. You're just outsourcing it. And if you want to drop it tomorrow because you've had a budget change, you just drop it.
So for the NHS, great. We'll hire these guys, do this for a little while. And, I've not looked into management of things like that. And I've got not much experience of how the NHS chooses. But from the outside, you see services, and they're getting much better now. But when my experience was of a lower quality, a lower standard, which I think has changed. I know a lot of people now that are in private services, and I'll 100% stick up for all the private workers that we have working with the NHS. They're the same people that want to deliver high care to family and relatives, and sometimes their own family and relatives. So the only thing that's different is there is some cost cutting, there is some things that are saved somewhere and not else. But what's cropping up now is there's private services that are offering the same pay, if not better, the same annual leave, the same pension abilities, everything is matching, because they want to take these staff from the NHS that are burning out, struggling to cope, and go, oh, well, you can do the same thing on a private vehicle and we'll give you more money. What's that? You don't want to do nights? Okay, that's fine. So
how's that sustainable? I don't know.
Well,
we're obviously missing something.
It's sustainable for some people, as in these private services. They're covering the high demand hours of the day. So their staff are on the ambulances. They fill in for the high demand areas, because the NHS either hasn't got enough staff, or they're lacking in vehicles or something where they need that extra support for X amount of days, and then it's a lull in service time, so we don't need them for a little while.
Whereas for us, like fire service and NHS, the same. You're providing 24-hour cover all over the county because you have a legal obligation to provide that.
Yes.
Whereas sometimes it would be dead, really quiet. You won't be required all of that staff, so you can flex that, I suppose, in the private sector.
When I first joined the NHS, I thought, this is great. The NHS is amazing.
It's not going anywhere. That's what you think.
It's here forever. I've got job security, and we're working together. I'm not, like I said before, I'm not earning someone money. I'm earning for myself, and I'm creating and helping run a service for the public, which is great. And then you start to realise, actually, there is benefits to a private service, and there is cons to a private service. Things like money. So if you turn up late every day, or if you're not putting 100% in, or if you're not very good at your job, in the NHS you're still going to get paid the same wage, because Agenda for Change means that you're on the same banding. As long as you hit a couple of things to make sure you're not going to get pulled up in appraisals and stuff, you will get the same wage. Whereas in a private company, I'm assuming, if you arrive early every day, if you put in more effort, if you do a really great job, you could have a manager that says, "Oh, you're worth staying. You're worth keeping."
I prefer that though.
So there's pros and cons for both. I don't know.
That's the problem. I think we would have people because
I don't think even America has private fire. They have, I think, a private EMS cover, and some is attached to the firehouses. Yeah, my other half's watching Chicago Fire at the moment. So
beautiful.
Keep watching that thing. That's a whole other podcast on its own, isn't it?
But there is the flip side to people working for the emergency services. For me, like, again, doing businesses and stuff like that, and having worked in big organisations, I like meritocracies. I do like that, because not everybody's the same. People say, oh, well, not everybody gets the same opportunities. You know what? Not everybody puts in the same effort. Not everybody gives a shit as much as they should, because they know they're going to get paid the same no matter what they do. And that encourages the lowest common denominator at times. And it's a race to the bottom, which frustrates me at times when you come across those individuals. And not everybody's motivated by finances, which is great. And I wouldn't say it's a massive motivator for me necessarily, but you like to think people are motivated because of the job that they want to do. But that passion can be diluted and even completely diminished for certain people 5, 10, 15 years into their career. How do you stimulate that? When people say, oh, we haven't had a pay rise in whatever. So I think that frustrates me. I like meritocracies. So I imagine that there's maybe similar frustrations in the NHS. But I've got a very singular view of the NHS and paramedics. I've not really met any bad ones, but I imagine there are rubbish ones out there. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, there's got to be, because everything is a net and things slip through, and I think that happens, and it's part of dealing with complaints and this thing called patient like liaison sectors within the NHS. Is that sometimes something slips through, and that one person who only calls an ambulance once every 10 years, if that if they see someone that isn't doing a very good job, that is their view. So occasionally things slip through.
I'd probably value that person's opinion who only calls an ambulance once every 10 years, like an elderly person. But the person that calls them every goddamn week and then moans, I'd be like, ram it. Yeah. Ram it, you are just a leech of society. You are an oxygen thief. I'm so sorry, let me just calibrate. This is somebody that's like got like terminal illness, or but you get the regular callers who are just like, oh, I've locked out my house, or this is, and you turn up and nothing's wrong. They're a hypochondriac, and you're just like, you are wasting these people's time. I need to go to hospital, or they're drunk and they just want to get taken to the hospital because they want to trip into town. Yeah, and they just pretend they're asleep. They pretend they're not responding.
And you think that never happens, but that's a real thing. It happens all the time. It's a real thing.
It happens all the time.
For anyone that watches, I guess they're starting to show more things now on the TV, like programs like Ambulance and HEMS programs. They're showing more and more of, actually, sometimes this really does happen.
This is Dave. We went to him 3 times last week. Hello, Dave. Yeah. How you doing, mate?
And it is a struggle for people to deal with that person with the same amount of respect.
You can't just say to them, no, I'm not taking you.
Yeah.
Because then, like you say, the complaint comes in and they go, oh, so talk me through it again then, Brad. You deemed it unnecessary to take this person. They were exhibiting these signs. You're like, but we go there every time. Nothing wrong with them. Yeah. It's not your judgment to make. That's not actually Brad. And you're like, fuck.
And the worrying thing about those kind of jobs is, as an example, if someone calls regularly because they've got pains, and it turns out that it's just, it's just a strange pain that isn't anything at all. It's idiopathic, which is kind of, it's unknown what is causing it, but it's just something random that happens. At some point, that person might get pain in the abdomen that's a liver or a spleen or a
cry wolf, isn't it?
That's a problem. So it's a cry wolf thing. Yeah. And unfortunately, it happens every now and again that you leave someone at home,
why don't they just go to the GP?
And then finally, sometimes it is a really bad thing. Yeah. So what happens with that one crew who goes to that patient and says, no, we leave them here all the time, they're fine. And then actually that is the one time where they die. You've got no leg to stand on.
Game over.
It's a really difficult game, and sometimes on the ambulances, you feel like you're trying to save the NHS by either leaving someone at home or deferring them to another mode of care, because you know how much pressure the NHS is on. Oh, yeah. But then to do that and risk someone, firstly, that person's life is at risk. You can't risk that person's well-being and life because you think you're saving some time or money. That isn't an option. But there is a risk versus benefit of everything that we do. There's a risk of going to hospital. There's a benefit of going to hospital.
There's a massive cost of going to hospital as well. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure you've probably got a great relationship with the people that you drop them off to in wherever it is, A&E or intensive care. I don't know what you roll them into.
Emergency department, yeah.
Emergency department. But sometimes they must are and they're like, dude, why have you brought them here? Why have you brought them here?
You turn up thinking, we've got to take this one in because it's either chest pain or abdomen pain or something that really needs to be checked. And the nurse looks at you, well, we've only just sent them home. We sent them home last night. They've not even been home for 4 or 5 hours. And you brought them back in. Well, yeah, but I can't leave this person at home because of what is the possible risk. But if you sent everyone to hospital and ordered every blood test, every scan, we wouldn't have any money to treat people that really need it. So risk versus benefit is being done all over the place. And I guess that's one of the stresses of the job is, if I take someone in, the waits at the hospital are 6-7 hours. So I'm just sat there where there's other calls going on. But if I leave them at home, then something could happen as soon as I leave.
Do you think the NHS will always be free? Do you think it should be free? You don't have to answer that if you don't want to, but
I'm going to answer. I will answer it because it's a fantastic question, and I think we should ask it more often.
I don't think it's sustainable.
There's
well, it probably is, but at what cost?
It is sustainable, but what isn't sustainable is the morale and the well-being of its staff.
Yes.
And this brings on to a fantastic line of the NHS is broken. It's not broken. It's working. People are going in. They're getting fixed. They're getting scans. Getting blood tests. Everything is kind of going on. Broken suggests that it doesn't work at all. It is working, but it's working at what cost? And the cost is staff well-being, stress on the staff, high turnover rates. So when people say the NHS is broken, what they mean is the NHS, the record of the NHS is being slowly and slowly bent out of shape. And at some point, it will crack. But what will happen then? Well, the bits that are still a large piece will work, and we'll have to fill in the middle. I don't, if the NHS was to break tomorrow, we'd all still be going to work. We'd be trying to pick up the pieces. We'd be trying to get us through whatever is going on.
I think people would take better care of themselves.
If suddenly the NHS
would like to see
disappeared, maybe they'd go, oh shit.
I'd like a list of stuff that we don't treat. Do you know what I mean? Like self-imposed obesity.
Yeah.
And then that's hard to prove, but I'm sure we could probably quite quickly come up with some metrics. There's plenty of data out there. Things that are just you as a human being, you were given, whatever, religious or not, I'm not religious, but you have a body, you've got one body, you don't get another one, it's not a car, you don't swap it, yeah? We've given you all the education, you've got a phone in your hand, it's never been as accessible as it always is now. We all kind of know the rules, yeah? Drink water, eat food, don't eat too much sugar, move a bit, a couple of times a week, yeah? You fucked that up, yeah? So get back, don't have to get back to perfect, but get a bit closer, and then we can help you with these things, because we can't just continue to support people who are just like, oh yeah, I know you told me to do the thing. If you like your kid, you know what I mean. You got 2 children. If I went to my kid and say, "This is what you do with your game. This is what you do with your thing," yeah, and I come back and she's broke it. Okay, I'll fix it. Let's do it again. Yeah, I might have told you wrong. My bad. Okay. If she do it 3 times, I go, no, it's broken now.
It's going in the bin.
It's going in the bin. Broke it. Daddy's not going to keep fixing it. You're not looking after it. Game over. Yeah? We'll just keep doing that. Otherwise, she's got a permanent game carer. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to and that's what the NHS is doing for people. They're permanently micromanaging. Yeah. Not because they want to micromanage. They're being forced to micromanage people's health and well-being. Or I'm like, manage some of this shit yourself. Come on.
Where does that come from?
I don't know. Well,
does it come from school? Should we start teaching?
Big part.
How to look after yourself?
One of your youngest is about to enter into the education system. My sister's a primary school teacher. I've had 3 kids that have gone through the education system. My youngest is 10.
Yeah.
They don't do enough. They don't do enough sport. They don't do enough. That I think you get so much benefit from physical activity. And I know it's going to come on to some of the stuff I want us to talk to about Rescue Fit is that the physicality of life. Like you said, I tried to push myself into an office job. Lots of office jobs are great. Okay, right. Not really supposed to do too much of that as a human being, though. It can be a portion of our life, 100%. But I don't think we're designed to do that long term every day. It should be interspersed with levels of physical activity because we are multifunctional, multi-moded people. We like to have that aspect of us. And I think we don't do enough of that in schools. I think schools were designed, in the age of industry to prepare people for working in factories and working in an office, and that worked for a bit. But I don't think, and it's not against my sister's she's a teacher, she's wonderful, she's fantastic, but even she has challenges with the curriculum. But that's just what they got to teach. And I struggle. What does your moral compass sit on it?
I think it will go back to the fact that I didn't enjoy school for the most part. I'd say that the large majority I didn't enjoy secondary school. Primary school was fine. I kind of got on with it, and that was a very long time ago. Secondary school hit in, year 7, and year 7 and year 8 were, crikey, this is like serious education. But after year 8, between year 8 and year 9, I really wasn't enjoying it at all. And thinking back now, I think the only time I really started to enjoy it is when I started to let go about insecurities and caring about certain things. And unfortunately, that meant I stopped caring about how well I was doing in the classes. Okay. So there's all kinds of stuff going on at school, nothing kind of too traumatic, but at a certain point in, say, year 10, I just stopped caring, and I was coasting through the grades, and now I think, right, my children are going to be going through that. I hope to God that something has changed in the system that caters for certain people.
Oh, now, shit!
I don't have ADHD or dyslexia or multitude of things that cause people problem in schools like that. But there's sometimes I think, this might have been an issue. And there's certain things at school that I just don't think are addressed properly. And so, that was 20 years ago since I left school. So I really hope that something has changed to help people that are trying to find themselves in life at that such a young age, where hormones are flying through their pores, they're trying to act up to fit in or trying to find their own individuality. So I hope there's something, and if my children are struggling, hopefully they are able to talk to me about it, that I can try and guide them a little bit. I'm going to tell them, because when I was young, I thought, I don't need school. Why do I'm learning all these sciencey maths things. I don't want to go and be a scientist. So shouldn't I be learning about something that I want to go and do? But I didn't know what I wanted to do. So maybe that was part of the problem. I could have, if I said, I want to do this, I want to be a paramedic. Oh, well, you need really, especially now, you need to have maths, science and English behind you. And I could have used that to focus on. But because I didn't have a idea of where I wanted to be for the next 30 years. And I don't think that you always need to have that.
I think anybody does.
But it just, I think sometimes I look back and I think, for example, I want to go and be a fireman. At least I'd have an idea of what I could do, but I had no idea at all. Yeah. Which, I guess sometimes that works. I've had a good time exploring different career options, and I'll still be exploring things now. But for some people that don't know what they want to do, we still need to provide an education for them. We still need to 100%. Give them options. And sport's a really interesting thing. Back in my day, God, I'm only 35, but back in my day at school, the option was rugby or something else. And for PE, you either do rugby or something else. And for girls, it was hockey or netball, for example. And that's great if you're a rugby-sized person, or if you're happy getting kind of tousled around a little bit and contact and stuff like that. But I was skinny, pale, and ginger, and I didn't want to play rugby. I didn't want to do anything like that. Yeah. So I just thought,
because there's always some kid that's just massive.
Yeah, and
some big ass kids.
There were, and I thought, well, I'm just going to throw the ball away and not going to near him. Which, looking back at that now, I wish I'd got into it more. I wish I had the confidence, which is what I was lacking at school, to try those kind of things and and experience them. But I hope now what's changed at schools is they have more options. When I went to college at 19 and I tried rock climbing as a thin, slightly tallish, but kind of person that could reach things and climb well because I was light, it was the perfect sport, and I excelled in climbing and I really enjoyed it because of my kind of body shape and what I like doing. It was also a different type of competition. It was you're competing against yourself rather than 20 other people that were kind of running at you full speed. So I really hope at school they are able to, and I've seen it now recently where schools can do rock climbing as a GCSE, or adventure sports is a GCSE. Yeah. So I think it's great now that you have, say, 30 people that can try 30 different sports and they can find that one thing.
There's more roots into stuff, isn't there? That's what I think. Yeah, I think there's still some hangover stuff. There's certain subjects I'd probably just kick into the long grass, because I feel like we've kicked sports into the long grass. I think kids do it like once, or I think my kids do it twice a week. I think they do 2 hours a week, which I think is terrible. Whereas, if you look at private schools, do you know anybody that went to private school?
I might have met a couple, but
they do it every day.
Every day?
Every day they do sport, every day.
And
some of them do it before school, they all do it after school, and then every Saturday at the ones that I've been to, every Saturday is sports day. Yeah, and all the school teams play on a Saturday. and everybody goes, even the people that aren't necessarily involved in the sports. And that is one of the big hidden differentiating factors, I think, that builds those characters of people that have tremendous discipline, that have drive, that have high personal standards. It's not inherently just because the maths lesson is better and there's less people in the class and you get your own accommodation or whatever. Yeah, they're all contributing factors. I don't pretend that they're not. But the reliance on putting people into sports every day, I think this builds so much character.
Character is what I was definitely lacking at school. I think I was my own person, but a character kind of falls out of you a little bit, and it's kind of like an aura, your character.
And social media wasn't really a thing when we were kids either. So I think that's a big factor.
No, it didn't exist at all. I remember having, I think it was year 9, I got a phone. I was the first person, I think, in the school to have a phone, or at least definitely in my friendship group.
So you have one that you can change the front case? What was
it was like, it looked like a big poo, like a big long rounded brick of a thing, and I was like, I've got a phone. I'm one of the first ones I have a phone.
You could have a yellow, a green, or a red front to it, and you did just a little bit.
You kind of
took the number outside the numbers, and then I bought off the market basically it did nothing, but it was pretend flick down.
Yeah,
it just stuck it on the front. It didn't do anything. It wasn't like electronically did
it's
just
like a cover thing,
but it looked like you flick it and answer it, but it didn't do anything. And I felt like that absolute nuts when I think it broke after like a week. But
I mean, you had your own identity in your pocket, I guess, in a way.
But it came with to look at what children do now. When you talk about that character and talk about knowing yourself, not knowing yourself, and those fear of judgments, imagine what that's like now.
I really struggle to imagine what it'll be like for my boys to go to school when I really struggled with school. Yeah. So everything is turned up to 11, and that becomes the new 9, 8 or 9. Yeah. And then every couple of years it goes up again. People say, social media is really bad, social media, phones. It depends how you look at it. It's so connecting. It gives everyone so many opportunities. Oh, yeah. There's no way me and you would be sitting here. I wouldn't have driven 2 hours to go and meet someone, completely random, to have a chat. But social media it has such a potential.
It's a tool.
But it is a tool that you have to be careful with. It's a power drill. You drop a power drill, use it incorrectly, you're going to get hurt. Yeah. So if they don't start teaching not just safety online, but how to use it in a correct way. I mean, it's like plastering your photos on the front of your house, or your views, your Twitter views on the front of a house. Someone might not see it for 10, 20 years, but at some point, someone will drive past your Twitter page from 20 years ago and see what you've written. And I have definitely written some things in the past where I think that's a real thing that I shouldn't have written. It wasn't, something I'll get in loads of trouble for. But it's not my real personality. Yeah. It was, this is a joke. I'll put that on.
That's why I love podcasting so much. I think it's like the purest form of social media because, one sentence or a phrase or a favorite quote or a picture doesn't articulate Brad's life. It doesn't encapsulate his views and his thoughts. That's not you as a complete person. As an offshoot, it's a thing. Maybe you say because you're funny. Maybe how you write something and how I read it are entirely different. Entirely different. I've got no idea who you are just from something that you've written. But that's what we do. We live in sound bites now. We experience each other and reality in speech, in quotations, of what we think people are, and that's really only a very small part of who they are.
And what we think people want. I think sometimes, they want this. I'll put this content out, or I'll say this. Well, no. You've got to be pure to what you believe in. Yeah. And at some point, if you give off, or if you make content and talk about things that you really are passionate about, at some point you'll get your audience. Yeah. And this isn't everyone needs to do social media rant. This is if you enjoy using it and if you think it's a good tool to connect with people, which, let's face it, social media is now the internet. It's not really, they're not really two different things. No. Because I don't sit on my laptop all day scrolling through websites. I'm on my phone all the time. Yeah. That is the internet now, and I'm taking a lot of words probably from a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you've heard of him. Gary Prophet Vaynerchuk, as I call him. He's described it recently as the social media is the internet. It's just the new way of experiencing the internet. So the same as when they taught internet in my day on the computers that were billions of years old, they need to be teaching people how to carefully interact with this huge, I mean, it's the world in our hands. Yeah. We need to be teaching children. I mean, the whole subject of sending pictures to each other is huge and a real safety concern. But not just that, we need to be careful about who connects with who, what kind of thing kids are looking at in terms of how that's going to affect them. They might see all kinds of random images that are distressing or traumatic, but also that will start to shape them. If you see enough things on a certain music genre, you'll probably start liking that music genre. So it's the same with other people's views. If you start seeing more and more of people's views, that starts to affect you. And that great saying of you are the person that's five people around you. Yeah.
You're the sum total of the five people you spend the most time with.
If you spend most of your hours watching these 5 things or on these 5 types of things, that's going to start to affect you. So
Hey folks, just wanted to jump in with a quick piece around firefighter health and wellbeing. Now, we get a lot of messages and emails into the podcast around firefighter health and fitness, whether you are trying to join the fire service and pass them tricky fitness tests, if you are currently serving, or if you are coming up to that next chapter of your life, retiring from the emergency services. We get so many different questions around it. So in partnership with Fitness for the Frontline, we have come up with a series of guidance and programs specifically designed to reflect the physical elements of the role of a firefighter. So whether it's carrying an LPP across an overgrown field, lifting a ladder above your head under running it, or wrestling with cutting gear for 30 plus minutes at some kind of complicated RTC, our bodies are required to lift, push, and carry objects in very specific circumstances. That is effectively what Fitness on the Frontline focuses on, as well as the longer term aspects of overall health and wellness for our firefighters. There are focuses around strength endurance, and overall conditioning, all achievable and relevant to our roles. Now, we are definitely not about to be smashing out world records or getting that beach body ready in 6 weeks rubbish. The systems and programs that we put in place are adjusted for people's current fitness levels, and they're not a prescriptive weight or a one-size-fits-all BS. We also take into consideration all the fitness testing for initial application and also for current firefighters who want to maintain and progress their fitness levels. It is very likely for myself personally that I'm still going to be a firefighter when I'm 60 plus, so longevity in the role is really important to me, and I know it is for so many people out there. The system has a built-in ability to adjust easily depending on the equipment you have available, your fatigue levels, or if you're coming off busy-ass night shifts and you haven't got a lot of time to work out. You can record your results, log your weights, your body measurements. We've got all the facilities to do that. The system is yours to use how you want to train. We've taken all the fluff and the gimmicks and the BS away from most of the rubbish that you see out there, and this is designed by experienced operational firefighters and qualified people, including myself, with members of the team available to contact throughout the time you are within us in the program. If you ever get stuck, if you're starting to struggle, and also to celebrate those wins and achievements with you. It all starts with no obligation, 7 days worth of the programming, absolutely free. So whether you're joining, serving, or looking at the next chapter in your life, have a glance in the link for the podcast. Fitness for the Frontline is designed by firefighters or firefighters. Now back to the show. Do you think we should control it? Do you think so? Like in, I'm going to butcher this to death, but like, I think it's China.
Yes.
I think it's a couple of places as well. They switch it off. The
certain
government switches it off.
Well, I've heard, TikTok is...
for hours during the evenings, and then I think a whole day on one of the weekends or something like that. I like that.
I think in your life you need to have that time because, as you probably understand, trying to start a business is very social media heavy, and I started to try and blitz in content a couple of weeks ago, and Georgina, my other half, was like, "You are always on your phone. It looks terrible. Your kids are noticing it." And I look over and you're just staring at your phone. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm creating content.
Go and do it in another fucking room.
When
you're with me, be with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do that. And that's why I've got social media management software stuff on. I'm not bloody great at it. Christ, we're nobody in the land of nobodies. But you've got to be present when you're with people.
It's just rude.
That's a discipline in itself.
Yeah, it is, because it's a addict thing. It's an addictive process where dopamine is released every time you see a little red thing or a notification. I turn my notifications off now, which kind of means I have to keep looking to see if I've got emails and stuff. It's working at the moment, but it's an addiction, and it starts creeping in, and that's why I try not to wear a smartwatch.
Yeah,
I tried it for a while,
I just wear a normal watch.
keep putting. If you're
hate them.
You're looking at the audio you're listening to the audio here now, but your hand keeps going up to your face all the time, and you're trying to read it, and that happens mid conversation. It's really rude, but it also shows, well, priority is this, the phone.
You're just secondary. Yeah, if something better happens now, I'm just going to sack this off and refer to my wrist or the phone because someone needs me. Unless my phone rings, I don't really pay attention to it. Like my kids will drop me messages or something like that, but unless they ring me, nothing's really wrong. So I don't really look at it. I look at my emails once a day.
Yeah, Georgie never rings
Don't
me
check
unless
emails.
she really needs to, or she's driving and she needs to find out what.
It sounds harsh, but you can train people to do that. Like my wife used to not like this analogy. I'm like, we train each other. Everybody trains somebody. You know, if I wanted you to feel attracted to me, I'd learn what you like, or I would teach you what I like, and then get you to do the thing that I like, and that's how we train each other.
That sounds scary, but that's
how we do it. You know, people don't like the idea of that, but you can train people to exchange information with you in a certain way. If you constantly respond to people all the way through the day, they're gonna sending you stuff.
Know that. If you go through my list of 10 contacts, I know that this guy, if I ring, he'll answer. If I text him, I'll probably be waiting 2 or 3 hours. Georgina's pretty good. We usually text each other quite quickly because we're partners. So you kind of know exactly what's going to happen. But there was in the Tim Ferriss book, the 4-Hour Work Week, he suggests answering emails between, I think it's something like 9 and 11, and other than that, it waits to the next day.
Exactly, as I'm the same.
If you can do that, that's great. You know,
everybody can. They can though. They don't be at 9 and 11, but like pick an hour during the day, go hard at it, and then leave it.
Or an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, something like that.
If I answer the phone to you, it would be very rare, very, very rare. That sounds so hard. I'm no more important than anybody else, but who I'm with what I'm doing at that moment in time is important. Yeah. And if it's really desperately important, they'll ring me again, and they'll ring me again, and they'll send me a message. And I've got WhatsApp messages that are like a week old. I've not even opened them. Yeah. Because I'm just like, I haven't got time at the minute. When I get time, I'll open it. If it's really important, guess what? They'll ring. Yeah, and then I go, okay, maybe. And that's not because I don't intentionally do that to be rude, but you've got to learn how to train people because they'll just bleed into your entire life. They will just consume that, and you start this relationship of exchanging mediocrity. It's rubbish. Don't need it. Yeah, sack it off.
You get to that point where you're texting someone and you're like, hold on a minute, this is a phone call. Why am I spending 10 minutes texting? Or if it's not a phone call, let's go to the pub, go and chat properly.
I send a lot of voice notes. Do you ever do that?
No, a friend of Georgina's does that. And I'm like, hold on a minute, what's she doing? No, that's fine. She can press play. If at some point, and this is another Vaynerchuk thing, we are going to start to switch to audio-only technology. So we've already got, I'm driving along, and I'll try not to say it now, but the S word for iPhones. Yeah. Hey, are you there? Yeah. Can you navigate me to here, or can you phone them? Yeah. Which is great. And at some point, rather than using our thumbs, because we're all trying to save time, we'll just say, can you text this person this? Yeah. Or can you send a voice note, start now,
even with all of my emails, mate, it's dictation.
Yeah.
Dictation software. I just talk at my laptop, and then I press 2 or 3 buttons, and then I go to the next thing and just talk at it.
If you're not very good with words, especially, you've got to tap. I can't do multi-finger typing.
No, just talk at it. It's quicker. I get my point across, because although if I have to write it, it will be a short, blunt email. I might come across a bit dickish. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I just talk at it.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I sent an email this morning to someone that had requested for some fitness advice for an assessment. And I typed it all out, and then I sent it in an email, and I thought, well, it's in an email, but I'll also attach the Word file in case he needs to print it. So I'm trying to hit a multitude of senses. And I thought, what if he's not very good with reading? I should find some kind of software that reads it out to him. And I thought, hold a minute, if I just record it, and then he can just listen to it. So that's what I'm going to do.
So much quicker for you as well.
I used
to do it all the time.
I'll probably do a little bit both, because some people love reading, and that's their thing. But I think voice noting a fitness idea, because I'm not selling fitness plans at the moment. It's more of this is a general idea of what you should be doing. That's a voice conversation.
Personal as well. Yes. Feels personal. Because, mate, honestly, in the space that I used to exist in, the space you exist in now, so much of what people try and do is just copy and paste. Yeah. So if you actually give people that human interaction, it's tremendously more valuable. But take us back to going into to being a paramedic. What training did you actually have to do after you've been in for a little bit?
So a paramedic, just covering that, is it your brother that's or
Brother-in-law. Yeah. So my sister's husband.
Someone messaged me on TikTok or something the other day to talk about it, and I said we don't need to be a paramedic to work on an ambulance. So a paramedic is a state-registered clinician that now, especially in the next couple of years, has someone that's got a degree behind them. So that can be a kind of apprenticeship thing. So I started after my PTS private stuff. I applied for a student paramedic pathway, which was a 3-year kind of thing that was meant to happen. 1 year of being an EMT or a trainee EMT, 1 year of being an EMT, so signing off everything that you've learned and consolidating it. And then the last year, which was about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years, was going to university, learning more stuff, having that academia behind you, and then having more ride-outs, more assessments to finally get your paramedic ticket with the HCPC to become a paramedic.
I think that's what he did. Because he came out of the RAF, but he did already have a degree, I think. So maybe he shortcutted that bit. But I know another friend of mine did like 20 years in the military and then came out and became a paramedic. And he was an EMT for about 1 year or so before he did that as well. So you don't have to have a degree at the minute, or do you have to have a degree?
To be a paramedic, I think the HCPC, so the governing body, they would like everyone to have that degree behind them. So I'm not too sure if that's happened just yet, but they set a time frame for it to all be swapped over. There used to be small little companies that run, and they might still be there, that have a partnership with a university, but it used to be all in the book. You sign off certain things, you get it all done, and then you become a paramedic. Then it moved to university base with some small companies, and now it's moving to pretty much full university. You've got to have academia behind you, because well, I guess what they're trying to do, and the College of Paramedics with the HCPC, they're trying to bring the paramedic profession to match nurses and doctors in terms of skill level and academia behind them. So yeah, to be a paramedic, I would say in the next couple of years, I think it will just be, you could potentially start working for an ambulance trust, but as long as they've got someone to send you to, then you can be a paramedic. But a lot of people now, they're just going straight to uni from college, and they're paying their 30 grand, whatever it is, for a degree, and then they'll come out that way. So there are still two options, but both options now, whereas before it was just one, involve a university.
Yeah, that's expensive.
It's expensive if you're paying for it. If you go via, like I did, through the trust, and you're accepted onto a pathway scheme, and that includes being sent to university, then you are getting paid during that process.
Okay.
If you come from school, go to college and do your A-levels, and then decide, right, I'm going to get a student loan and be a paramedic that way, instead of getting paid 30 grand, you're owing 30 grand.
Right. So what is the pay for a year or whatever? What do people start at in that? Because it probably isn't a lot.
I think people, depending on which level, so the very bottom level, and I'll be very careful not to say bottom, but in terms of lowest skill
lowest
grade,
financial, whatever.
I think band 3, maybe band 4.
Okay.
And then that moves to band 4, 5 and 6, and managers and specialist skills are band 7. So as an example, I'm on band 6. I'm in midway in that band, and I think I'm on about 35 grand a year. And that's without 25% antisocial on top. So I haven't got a problem saying, I think my P60 for last year was about 40 grand, 41 grand. So for someone that's been in the ambulance service for 8 years, I've been a paramedic for 3-4 years, my pay is about 41 grand, and I don't do that much overtime, so that's I'd say I'm an average.
But they can start at band 3 or 4 then.
Yeah, so there's people that are wanting to work on an emergency ambulance. You can't call them ambulance drivers, we don't like that, but
why?
It's a bit of a all-encompassing thing for just driving the ambulance. So it's a big thing in the ambulance world. If you say, oh yeah, we spoke to the ambulance driver, I know it's just one of those sayings. It's like calling everyone a paramedic.
It's to them, or
I guess what it is we don't just drive ambulances. We use the ambulance to get to the place, and then we treat. I think what it stems from is in the 60s and 70s, where the majority of the job was you drive somewhere, you pick them up and you take them to hospital.
Yeah.
Now that is a lot different. We're spending sometimes 7 or 8 hours with a patient. So no longer are we ambulance drivers. We drive there on blue lights, that's 10, 20 minutes. And then we are there for hours treating someone on scene. I'd say maybe about sometimes 2 hours on scene. If it's a real kind of social economic job, or if there's lots of mess involved, it might take a while. And then at hospital, you're sat there for sometimes 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, when I've done ride-alongs with them, you can be at hospital, you're just trying to book people in. That is like half the goddamn day was waiting, trying to book people in, just sat in corridors with people on a gurney or whatever we call them.
You don't see it on TV. You don't see Casualty, the programme, or Ambulance, or any of these real-life things. A crew go out, see one patient, spend half the shift, have a lunch break, and then go see one other patient. You know, when some of my colleagues first started on a night shift, they might not even do a job. They might do 1 job, 2 jobs, if that. And during the day, 2, 3, 4 jobs. And it suddenly became really busy, and now it's dropped back. And it's not because their call volume's low, it's because that one crew is spending 6 hours with someone at hospital. They have lunch break and go and do it again.
Doing what?
As in
6 hours.
What do you do? What? As in
just
why?
waiting to book them in.
So what happens is,
I'm not saying you're sitting around doing nothing, but I'm like, it's like that seems so.
It doesn't make sense, does it?
It's because you should be out there doing it, kicking ass, taking names.
Think of it like a hospital. And I'll get here eventually. At the top, you might have ICU, geriatric wards. They've got allocated beds, and you'll have someone in there for maybe a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks. And then as you go down, you've then got scanning areas, bloods, small little wards, maybe outpatients. At the very bottom of the hospital, you've got the ED, the emergency department, because we don't call it A&E anymore. Because it's not always for accidents, because you can't call it an RTA, it's an RTI.
Yeah.
And although we'd love to call it just emergency, you also have urgent care centres, which is slightly different to an ED, but I try now to say ED. So at the bottom of the hospital, the bottom of this kind of conveyor, you have the ED, and
it's like a first line of defence.
It's like
keep everything away.
Either they get sent home, or they get fixed in the emergency department, or sent to the GP. If they need admitting, they start going up the levels.
Yeah.
And further up they get, maybe up to the ITU, and then for a long-term ward. But what happens is the beds up at the top get full. And if they're there for longer and longer, or if there's more people being admitted, suddenly there's no beds for the people in A&E. So when someone arrives in A&E, and that's a day in A&E, you're going to need maybe a couple of days in IT or a high dependency unit, and then you're going to need 2 weeks in like a normal ward. Suddenly it's waiting for a space to go up the ladder. So as that top of the building gets full of patients, at the ED they're trying to sift through, and they are the workhorse. I think they're the powerhouse. Yeah. My job is easy compared to an A&E nurse. Really? Like, full respect to anyone that works in A&E, because it's a really difficult environment.
One of them on.
Definitely. I mean, there's hundreds.
Contact for one of them, that'd be amazing.
It's someone that you want to talk to someone that will not lose their job by saying exactly what they want to feel. But
just don't say where you're from.
They've got to get across what is going on in A&E. Yeah. But bring this analogy back. If A&E is rammed because they can't send their patients further up the list, what happens when 10 ambulances arrive? Yeah. There's no room in A&E, so where do those ambulances go? The patients stay on the ambulances.
That becomes the mobile room, and you're the bed clinician or whatever. Do you know what I mean? You just sitting there keeping them going.
Now you might think, let's just take these patients in and put them on corridors and in beds in the corridor. That's happening. The corridors are full. The ward are full, the majors and minors is full. So because the corridors are full with patients, they're staying on the ambulances. And that is what's happening. That if you ever drive past a hospital nowadays, instead of, look, there's loads of people in A&E because I can see loads of ambulances, they're probably in the ambulance. And that is what's happening, is that the top of the ladder is full, the top of the conveyor belt, or however you want to think of it, is full. People can't get out of A&E, which means people can't get into A&E, so which means they're stuck on the ambulances. And you might think, that just means paramedics are sat on the ambulances, they're just sat there on the phones with the patients. Yes, that is partly correct. But what happens when an emergency call goes out or a major incident and all the ambulances are sat at the hospital, the person that is getting hurt the most is that one person who really needs an ambulance, calls 999, and because we work as a country, really, an ambulance will get pulled from anywhere, Ipswich to Harlow, or Cambridge to Watford. That would happen. So you will get an ambulance eventually, and even if it's a different area, you'll be sent one. But those 20 minutes, that half an hour, you'll be waiting for an ambulance when you might really, really need it, and that's who's getting affected.
And I say that with respect, and I try and remind firefighters when I'm working, because I'll usually be the person in charge or whatever, incident commander at a job, and the crews will go in things like bariatrics are a real bugger, because we go somewhere, they're not dying, well they are, but they're not going to die in the next hour, the next few hours. And you ring and you give the condition and stuff like that. And they go, yep, okay, ETA 6 hours. What? 6 hours for an ambulance? Yeah. Okay, well. And then, like you say, that then backs us up, because we've made entry into the property. Because we'll have the call and they'll go, oh, shit. And we'll always ask, are NHS there already? Or is EMAS there? Or is, is West Mids there already, or somebody? And they'll go, yeah, there's an ambulance committed to the job. So we go, there's nobody there. We turn up with the first ones there. So we force entry, and there's, the neighbour or the family member, and they're really worried. So you force entry, you go up, there's usually a hoarder, you know what I mean? You work through all of their stuff, you find them in a pile somewhere, half on the bed, half not on the bed. Stinks. Everything's not great. They're not dead, they're not dying, they're just really, life's bad. Life is bad for them. There's something gone wrong probably a couple of years ago, and no one's fixed it since. Yeah. And then that happens, and we're like, okay, well, when's the ambulance going to be? Because there's no point us taking them outside and just sitting them on a curb and they get cold.
Yeah, where are you going to put them?
And they say 6 hours, and we're like, what are we going to? We stay there. Half the time, we just have to stay. Yeah. And we need to get a little bit better at saying, okay, you were okay before we arrived. Breathing, conscious. You've got some food. We're probably going to leave. And we rarely do. We end up just sitting around, because it's like, well, morally that doesn't feel right. So we stay there waiting for you, Pete. And I see it with firefighters just getting angrier and angrier, saying, where's the goddamn ambulance? Yes. And you turn up and they're like, oh yeah. And I'm like, wind your fucking neck in and sit back on the truck if you're going to be like that. Because I'm like, these people are fucking busy. All right, they've just come from God knows everything. They think you've been sat around the corner having a sandwich. And sometimes that might be the case, but that's because you haven't eaten all day. My brother-in-law always says, he says with his pay, he's like, well, we get an extra, I think it's 50 quid a day, because we always miss lunch. And it's not because we time it right.
I need to move services. It's £20 in my service.
Maybe it's £20, sorry. But it's like, you don't get lunch. That's not a thing. You try and eat something on the way to the next call. Yeah. There isn't no lunch. You know what I mean? And that's where, with the greatest of respect, firefighters were busy, but we always get lunch pretty much 9 times out of 10. We always make sure we get gym time. We're always getting lunch time. And I'm like, guys, ambulance sucks. It's struck. I go on ride-alongs and it knackers me just doing a day with them. But I can understand how that filter, or how that bottleneck works. So you did a couple of years training. You got into the service. What was it like the first time you were out and about as a qualified paramedic? Was there anything different to what you thought it was going to be versus what it was?
I remember the first shift I ever did on an ambulance. It was a night shift in Saffron Walden, and the crew was lovely that I was paired with that night. And I remember sitting in the back. You can imagine a kind of box shape in the dark, 2 in the front I can't talk to. And as we're driving past, I just see the kind of electric blue flashes outside. And I thought, this is amazing. I have gone from not knowing what I want to do in life, strolling through different things. Suddenly, I'm sat in the back of an ambulance on the way to an emergency call. It was brilliant. It was fantastic. Yeah. And I thought, this is amazing.
Looking at those vehicles go past, and you're like,
that looks cool.
They're bloody on it. Yeah. They're going to go rescue someone. Yeah. Yes.
And then you start talking about, right, in these TV programs, in my mind, I'm thinking action, blood, guts. Going back to my mum, I never wanted to do this. Suddenly I am. This is crazy. What am I doing? And I thought it was great. Then you get there and things slow down a little bit. And there's a couple of sayings in the ambulance service, and one is we never run. if you run somewhere, you get out of breath, you start making mistakes. It's a little bit like slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yeah.
Slow down, keep your heart rate down, especially when you're blue light driving, because you can't get irate and stressed during that. You need to make clear, conscious decisions about how to act when you're with patients and what is the best treatment, because you can do something very quickly and drive to hospital, or you might miss something. So suddenly after the excitement, you get brought down a couple of pegs, and it's getting missed a little bit now, but early on, 60s and 70s and 80s, you were made to attend, you never drove, you were told that you were going to learn for weeks and weeks and weeks. Don't say anything, don't talk to anyone in the crew room, you don't know anything, you haven't got the war stories yet. And it was just a learning experience, and that is still there now. You can try and prepare someone for an emergency service. You probably have the same thing with fire, but the things that scare you, the things that make you stop and think, the things that make you go, holy crap, this happens in life. They're not the things that you think. Blood, guts, poo, wee, all that kind of stuff, that's fine, I can deal with that. And a lot of people I meet, although there's a couple of people that don't like random things like teeth or spit or poo, those things, we get that, that's bread and butter of the job. What affects people is those things that you can't explain to a member of the public, a thing that you don't see on TV. I mean, it's starting to come through now with the programs that are trying to show a more realistic view of what's going on, and I commend them for trying to show as much as they can. But I do remember thinking, this is crazy. I can't believe I'm doing it. This is amazing. I'm so happy that I'm in a career that I can really bite on with, because you can't just turn up and do it. You need to have medical knowledge behind you, and
when I engage your brain,
you've got to learn, you've got to study, you've got to remember things, you've got to talk well to people, you've got to make decisions. You have to, if you're running as a team, usually one of you takes charge, so one is the leader and one is kind of like driving or doing the paperwork or something. You need to act up, and you need to be that person that the member of the public is looking to you to tell them what to do, tell them it's going to be okay, and this is the answer. This is the problem. Which is great. I mean, it's amazing. Whenever I talk about my job now, sometimes what creeps through is a little bit of, I've been doing this for a little while and I want to do something else. But if anyone comes to me and says, I want to go join the ambulance service or the fire service or the police service or Coast Guard, I have nothing but positivity, and it's a great job. Go and do it. Go and learn how to do it. Just if you've got that itch of, I think I might want to do that, go and scratch it, get it done, and go and enjoy it, because it's fantastic. Do you need to stay there for 20 years, 30 years? No.
So the same thing as well, because I always say with these jobs, and with any job to an extent, but certainly with emergency services, I say life is boring for boring people, and that sounds really horrible. But I'm like, even in the fire service, like there's loads of different things you can do. People say, oh, you're a firefighter, and they have an idea of what that one thing is. Like with the paramedics, an idea of what the one thing is. But like, I talked about my brother-in-law again, like he's training HART team stuff, which is obviously hazard area, rescue. What is it?
Hazardous area response team. So that's what I'm in as well. I'm in HART.
Beautiful. So HART team. He's training. He wants to get on the heli meds and all that sort of stuff. Same for me. I do international search and rescue, I do water rescue, rope rescue, do all of those different aspects to it. There's lots of avenues you can take. Some you have to do for free. Some you might get paid for. Some might be being inconvenient. You might have to take some time off. You might have to take some time away from your family. But you are still holding the steering wheel. If you want to, but you don't want to, you could do the same thing for 30 years. And I would struggle to do that. Like we said at the beginning of our conversation, that would be pretty cack for me. I would struggle, and I probably would become depressed. I probably would become disengaged in the job, disenchanted, and moaning about stuff, and moaning at paramedics, and moaning at the chiefs, and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, you've given up the control of your life. You become a volunteer victim. Do you know what I mean? You have handed the steering wheel to somebody else. And guess what? They are not steering your boat. They're steering theirs. Okay? They've got their plan.
Yeah.
You don't fit into their plan. Okay? And if you do, they ain't got much plan for you as part of their plan. Doesn't make them a horrible person. But Brad's got his own life. Brad's got his own family. I've got my own family, yeah? I'm not going to... I always say people aren't against you, but they are for themselves. So if you can come with me, if we can grow together, if you also want to go and be on the HART team, and let's train together. Let's go and do that. And let's go and this, there. But if you don't want to, you're probably not going to continue to be part of my journey. I'm not any better than you, but you don't want to do that. So that, it's like if we both said, oh, we're both heading north, and then we get to Scotland, and you go, yeah, we've made it, and I'm like, oh, I was going to the North Pole, you know, I'm no better than you, but like if that's where you think your journey ends, I want to become a paramedic. And then when you do that, someone stops there, that's okay, but don't vilify people like yourself. I want to go do HART, I want to go do this, now I want to start my own fitness and wellness company. All of those other aspects, some people don't have that same drive.
Yeah, and I get into a stage where I look back and I think, God, I wish I'd done more. I wish I had done this, or you know, if only I had this aspiration back then.
Don't do that.
But now, yeah, things have changed, and I feel so content in my objectives now.
Yeah.
But more so that I'm content that back then I was not the same person. I would not have been able to do the job I do now when I was 18. Some people can do that. Some people at 18, they've got such a mileage on them that they can go straight into the ambulance service. In the police service, I don't know if they still do it now, but you could join the police at 18. There's no way, and I tried it, there's no way I would have been a good police officer at 18, 19. It would have not worked out. Yeah. But
you can join the fire service when you're 18, but I think it's not good for a lot of... I think there's more firefighters that join at 18 that don't have long and rewarding careers because they've not done any other crap jobs. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you need to go and stack shelves. You need to go and work in a warehouse to go, oh, this is shit. Yeah. You know, I want to go do something I enjoy. If you just go straight into something and that's your base level, you can start to have a very twisted view of like, oh, this is rubbish. And I'm like, dude, have you ever worked a real job? Have you ever done like a real crap job? And they're like, no, I joined when I was 18. Well, then you've no real comparison. That's a bit of a problem.
That's going to be a worry with the fact that to be a paramedic, you're going to need a degree. To get a degree, you need to go to university, which means a lot of people coming through as paramedics or newly qualified paramedics, as they're called, will be coming from university. So they've gone school, college, university,
school,
ambulance,
then job.
And you know, there's some fantastic NQPs, there's some fantastic staff that we've got. The only thing that the trust might struggle with is this 22-year-old who's gone school, ambulance service.
Yeah.
Goes, what? When do we retire? 68.
Yeah.
Holy crap! I've got to do this.
40 years.
Yeah. Can you imagine? You know, they're and if they're the type of person that is going to fix their problem, they'll leave and they'll do something else. And you know, if they've done 5-10 years, then that's great, and that's what I would probably recommend to people. But I think the
average length is like 6 years now. I think that's the average.
Yeah, because either burnout or I could just work in a GP surgery and not do nights or weekends. There's certain things that are going to take people away, and I say this a couple of times. The trust has got to make a decision whether they budget for that, and they have attrition and rollover and people leave and they just fund more people to come through, or they say, well, it's more beneficial for us to try and keep these staff.
Yeah.
And that's either going to be a money problem where they go, well, we've got money, we'll just get more of them, or it's a patient problem where patients are not being looked after as well because the paramedics don't want to do their job anymore.
Yeah.
So, you know, either it's financially motivated or it's end service user motivated.
When you did the training for the HART team, what was that like? We'll just expand on that for people that don't know anything about it.
Yeah, so the HART team, Hazardous Area Response Team, we're kind of governed by another organisation, which is NARU, which is National Ambulance Resilience Unit, I think it is. The purpose of the HART team is to try and get a paramedic to a patient wherever they may be in the country. So as an example, someone falls down a hole, it's not fully safe to just send a paramedic down the hole unless they've got SWAR kit, which is working at height kit, ropes kit. So how do you get someone down there? And what the government has said to NARU and the ambulance service is if a person is somewhere and they need clinical interventions, we need a paramedic to go there. They don't need to rescue them, they don't need to lift them out, get them out, they just need to be able to get clinical interventions of the highest possible care to that person. And that's where the HART team comes in. We're all people that have gone through ambulance training. Most of us are paramedics now and advanced paramedics, some areas. We're able to deliver care wherever that may be. So if it's high up, we have SWAR training. If it's in water, we're water rescue trained. So what they're trying to do is get that clinical care to any kind of place, which I think is great. It's a fantastic job.
How often do you have to train for that? Because we obviously do because traditionally, and the way I've seen it, is you usually operate within our safe system of work. Where HART comes in, you often end up setting up your own safe systems of work, and sometimes that can be challenging. Just to try and get everybody singing on the same song sheet, because like you say, going into the hazardous area and treating the person is great. It will usually then be us that will extricate them out of that. So it's really important that we have that joint understanding of risk and that joint way of working. But I would have thought it's very difficult to maintain the training for you guys and girls as well. How often are you able to train? Because that's time off shift and everything again, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you've really, it's a really important thing, that training. We're really lucky in that we have a rolling rota of 7 weeks at my base. So you do 6 weeks of shifts. Of that, 2 weeks is relief, and then the final week is a training week. So we get 3 or 4 days, depending on how long the days are, just to do training. And we're not on shift there. We are as a training team. So someone else will cover our operational rota, and we are just training. So that means we get 3 or 4 full days to get as much training in as possible. We have managers that their job is to just be a training manager. We have individual instructors that that's their kind of chosen areas to do, either a SWAR instructor or a water instructor. So it all filters down and gets the responsibility is passed on. So we're so lucky that we get allocated time. So I guess it's 1/7 of our operational time is training, which I think is good. It could be better, but I don't think it's going to happen. There's a lot of talk. I remember a podcast, Jocko Willink was talking about training with the police service, and they aren't. You don't want to defund the police. You want to give them more money, more training, more abilities to get better.
Yeah.
I think he said something like 1/5 of the time. That's probably coming from special forces type territory, where if they're not operational on tours, they're training a lot. So we've got 1/7, which is great. I don't think we're going to get more than that, because it's a balance of, well, if you're not doing something, we need paramedics on the road. But we're so lucky to get allocated time. We've got great facilities. We're funded really well. We've got a slightly different budget than a normal ambulance service. It comes from NARA and a different kind of department of the government, I think. We've got working at height rigs. We've got water kit available to us. We've got kind of tunnels and systems. And every now and again, we'll go off to Wales or Cardiff or Lee Valley to do whitewater training.
Yeah.
And there's some great USAR rigs as well. So we get sent on a USAR course for 2 weeks. So we get to train at the Fire Service College on, I think it's Rig 5, which is incredible. I think there's one in Lincolnshire as well.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
Training is really important. It's difficult to make sure we're covering all of it, in terms of some people want to do more of one thing than the other. But yeah, we've got good
Have you ever
support
looked at
from
ISAR?
managers.
International Search and Rescue.
A little bit.
I bang on about it all the time.
I think that'd be a great thing to do, but my time at the moment is so thin on the ground.
Yeah,
I would recommend. A job came up recently. I think I retweeted it and reposted it. If anyone is listening that's a HART paramedic that has thought about ISAR, I think you're the person to have a
we could certainly connect a few people through. I mean, UK Med existed for a long period of time, and they had different doctors and paramedics and whatnot working within that. But it's still a really valuable skill set, and we still send medics out on every single deployment. So yeah, if people want to learn more about it and they want to get in contact, I think it's a really valuable thing to do. Yeah, you just have to be willing. You have to put your time in. There's a lot of training. I mean, even the USAR 1, the Urban Search and Rescue ones, they're usually 2 weeks, and they'll usually get put on a USAR 2 as well. And then all of the breaching and shoring, everything like that. A lot of the paramedics don't need to go on that level of training, but they have to have an awareness of it. But it's a great thing to get into, and I'm sure HART's a really interesting thing to be part of as well. Did you meet your missus in the job?
Yes, what a cliche.
Dude, there is some absolutely smoke screens in the paramedics that are out there. The women aren't bad as well, to be fair. But man, when we go to jobs, it's an absolute pleasure to work alongside some of the individuals that are there. So you guys met in the job?
Yeah. So Georgina, my other half, I love her to bits, and 2 kids as well. So we met in the service, and we kept it quiet for a little bit, just because what it's like is whispers and rumours. And I've been with her kind of 8 years now. Yeah. And I tell you what's really great working with someone in the same industry is they get it. Yeah. And people listening that are in services will understand, and people that are in the public area might quite not. But when you know you can go home and explain a clinical situation, and they go, oh yeah, no, that's a really difficult one, that one. Rather than having to explain, oh, tachycardia means this, blood pressure is this. It's really quick and easy. The problem with it is that sometimes you'll come home with a story and you'll go, yeah, I don't want to talk about work, and you're talking about work. It's, you know, it has its pros and cons, but I think for me and Georgina, there's more pros than there are cons. And also it's great because we worked on the same base. We could try and swap shifts around. Sometimes we work on the same ambulance. Now that is a good idea or a bad idea, depending on what your personality is like. But it's
So you're both paramedics?
We're both paramedics, yeah.
Which of you would you say is the most driven in what you do?
Georgina is more driven as a paramedic.
Okay.
She has wanted to be a paramedic, and she'd be a great person to come on. She's wanted to be a paramedic since she was like 12, 13.
Really?
Yeah, so sadly her dad passed away when she was very young, and she saw a lot of kind of healthcare workers and paramedics and people that come to see her dad. And through that, she wanted to be a paramedic since that age. Whereas, as you might have heard, my story was from about 26.
Yeah.
It's only been about 8 years, whereas she's 28 now, and she's wanted to do that since she was 12, which is incredible. And she has such passion and drive for patients, for improving herself clinically and kind of with her knowledge. She doesn't want to do anything else. That's all she wants to do. And I think she's going to succeed really well. She's done a couple of kind of developmental managing courses and some stuff like that. I'm so proud of her in what she's done. She should be sitting here really rather than me. She's great.
We'll talk to her. What does development look like beyond a paramedic in the trust as such? Is there a ceiling, like, because you talk about bands and they'll let people naturally progress through these. In firefighting they don't. I mean, they do their apprenticeship,
right,
and then they get their competent pay, and that can pretty much be it, unless you want to then become a manager. That's kind of it.
In some respects you are limited to what degree of clinical training you have. Now, that didn't used to be the case. As a technician, that's kind of like the step below a paramedic. You could become a manager, and then you could kind of work your way up that way.
Having never been a paramedic? Having
never been a full paramedic, yeah, because what it used to be was, back in the day, before my time, a paramedic was just someone that could do an IV cannula and intubate. It was just extra skills. They were called a paramedic because they could do other stuff. Whereas the bulk of the service was not a paramedic. They were emergency technicians, or, you know, an ambulance person, or things like that. So now it's kind of flipped on its head. The main clinical role, or the kind of the first big ticket, is the paramedic, and then after that you can become a critical care paramedic, you can become a manager, you can go off and do HEMS, things like that. So it is like the big...
What's HEMS?
So HEMS, Helicopter Emergency Medical Services.
That's probably what you're on about, yeah.
So that will be generally anyone on the helicopter, or more and more you're seeing them on cars now, where the weather isn't very good. If it's too sunny, if they've seen a cloud, they'll have to go on the car. Overnight, things like that. So some helicopters have got night vision capability. They can land and fly during the night, whereas some will use cars. But there is and there isn't scope to go elsewhere.
Do you get a little bit more money every time then, I'm guessing? Because, again, my brother-in-law is like, and I'm going to get all these names wrong, so please correct me as I go, but like...
That's all right, I don't get offended.
Searcher, we're sewing people up, I'm guessing.
Searcher?
Is it searcher? What do you sew people up?
Suturing.
That's what I said.
Suturing. Stitches.
Stitches.
Yeah, it's just called...
So suturing is a separate qualification?
It's like a bolt-on module,
okay.
I think.
Do you get paid more for it?
It's so complicated.
Is it?
The difficult thing is to explain to someone who gets paid for what, how many roles there are, because I could count 5 or 6. You could get an ambulance, you could get a nurse, you could get a paramedic, you could get an urgent care paramedic, you can get a specialist paramedic, emergency care practitioner, intermediate ambulance practitioner, associate ambulance practitioner, emergency care support worker, emergency care assistant, ambulance care assistant.
Wow.
How do you
deal
deal
with...
they all
look the same?
Well, we all wear green.
They all wear green. Have they got different things on the shoulders? Or
so luckily most services make sure that your grade is printed on your epaulets now.
Okay. What about drugs as well? Because I know he's done a few extra qualifications in different drugs you can give. But I'm assuming they're always on the ambulance. You're just obviously not supposed to use them if you're not qualified.
That depends.
Because they load up different drugs at the beginning of the shift, don't you?
So in my service, we have a drug bag. It's a kind of square yellow neon bag, and that has most drugs that most of us will use. In the HART
Some
team,
of the scary stuff in it.
some of the stuff is scary.
I mean, you can kill people. Kill people with paracetamol if you give them enough of it, I suppose. But like, what's the crazy stuff that people carry?
Unfortunately, we don't have. It's the back end of the question, but you know when people say, "Oh, they need sedating," can you just sedate them? You're going crazy. We need to sedate them. We don't have that in Australia and America. They do.
Anaesthetic, and I've had a few operations. Being an anaesthetist.
Yes.
It's like a whole different qualification, isn't it?
That's a whole... You do your doctor degree, you
That's
do your
a whole different
other
thing.
stuff, and 20 years later, then you can do it.
Because you're basically learning how to switch off part of the person's consciousness.
You're paralysing someone, you're stopping them from breathing.
You can fuck that up really fast.
You're giving them things like ketamine.
You give them too much too quick.
Which is like a drug where they think they're somewhere completely different, and you have to kind of guide them through a trip.
How does that differentiate? I know I'm asking a million questions here, but like...
No, throw them.
Vets seem to use ketamine quite freely.
Vets,
do they have do we care less about animals? Do they still have to have the same qualification? Because they definitely can't give it to people. I mean, vets are super qualified.
Yes, I've been to a vet that overdosed because he was taking drugs. He was taking drugs from his surgery, and he overdosed. But yeah, the way drugs work is they will work for humans and dogs and other animals. So it's great in that they kind of, as long as you've got the dose right and the right kind of quantity and the right type of drug, they are relatively spread out, and you can use them for other people.
That's all in what's that book that does all the dosing and stuff like that?
The BNF is one book that does doses.
They release it every 2 years or something, and keeps it all up to date.
Hospitals usually use the BNF. We have the JR Calc, which covers our drugs. That's like the ambulance version.
Quick reference guide.
You
have to know that much stuff that
they used to say you need to know this inside and out. Now we've got apps, smaller pocket versions. The important thing with drugs, and every clinician that's listening is probably thinking this, is that every time you give a drug, you either hand it to someone else or you get someone else to check what you're doing, which is difficult when you're on your own, but then you need to do something to make you put on a different hat and say, is this the right thing? Is this correct? Is it the right
switch your mindset, recheck again, yeah.
Check again. Fresh eyes is a great term that they use in maternity. Someone that's never seen the patient before comes in, looks over everything, checks that you're doing the right thing, and goes off again. But what they try and teach us now is for example, a vial of a drug, you would look at it and make sure it's the right dose and the right date and it's okay. Before you would hand it over and say, this is morphine, is that right? And they'll just look at it and go, yeah, I think it's morphine. Instead, if you hand that drug over and say, can you tell me what that drug is and if it's in date and what I should be using it for, then they are going to...
Because otherwise you preload them with a bias, don't you?
Preloaded bias. They're not going to read it quickly. You literally have to say, well, that's this and that. You can do that with a family member. I'm going to give your relative a drug. Can you tell me what is written on that vial?
Do you do that?
I haven't done that before, I don't think, but there's nothing wrong with it, because
can you just do it yourself though?
If you're there on your own, yes, because you'll get people on cars, rapid response cars that are on their own. If you've got someone else, why would you not check? I mean, there was on Chicago Fire.
You might have too much ego.
Something happened on an episode that I was watching last night. Exactly the same thing happened. They picked it up, thought it was something, and it wasn't. With the drugs we carry, we don't carry very many of them because it's one bag, usually for one, maybe two patients. So it's very unlikely that we can give someone something that is going to kill them.
Okay.
Whereas HEMS, they do anaesthetising and all kinds of crazy things. So on HEMS, you'll get a doctor and a paramedic as a general rule. Wow. So you'll get a doctor that's done some pre-hospital training, as well as their old speciality, which sometimes is anaesthetics, which is great, or might be kind of like a bone doctor that's great with those kind of things. So they bring their own speciality, then they get through emergency, like pre-hospital emergency treatment. And at the moment, they're usually riding with one other paramedic or a doctor. So you get a crew of 2, crew of 3. They'll fly in with all the drugs, all the specialist kit, shiny helicopters.
Do you or your partner have aspirations to do anything like that? Is that beyond
Georgie
the realm
does.
of... That's in her field, is it?
When you're in the ambulance service and you kind of look up above you, you see paramedic. If you're not a paramedic yet, that's a kind of aspiration for majority of people, but not all. My old crewmate doesn't want to be a paramedic. He's quite happy where he is. And then once you're a paramedic, you kind of think, well, what else can I do? There's management, there's critical care, there's suturing and primary care. I could go work in a GP surgery. So there's some other things.
I think he's going to become a GP.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd like
Does he like golf? Because he'll have to pick up golf. He got the weekends off, no nights.
He's cool. He can chill out better than me. I think he would suit something like that. I think he'd be very good at it as well. He's got a couple of young children. He's got great empathy. He's very patient. I think he'd be very good at it. But again, with his RAF background, I think he'd be great on HEMS. I think he would love that.
Yeah.
I don't know if my sister would enjoy him doing it as much. I think she's got an idea of like a quiet family life kind of thing.
HEMS, from my limited understanding and my personal view, I think it takes a lot from you to begin with because you're still on shifts. You've got to learn more clinical ability. You are going to the worst jobs of the worst jobs all day. So burnout is a bit of a worry. Seeing lots of traumatic stuff, PTSD is an issue. But you're also working with a charity and they want a little bit from you as well. They would like you to go to some charity stuff. So for me, I'm, with Rescue Fit on the go, that's not something that I want to delve into.
Yeah.
Georgina hates flying. She can't go on an aircraft without holding on to the seat with dear life. She's getting past it a little bit. But we don't go flying very often thanks to COVID.
Yeah.
But although I love helicopters, I think they're amazing. I could film and watch helicopters and fly them all day long. She would be scared to take up in a helicopter. So that's not an option. In some services, you can be a critical care paramedic without the helicopter. So you can either do that advanced training and go on a car, or you can do some extra training and go on a car that way. So I think that's the route she would like to go. We all join this job to be that person that helps someone on that worst day of their lives. And if that means having to deal with some horrible things, for me, I would rather it be me than someone else because I want to do that job. So there's people that want to be the best that they can be. They want to be get as much clinical training as they can be, and they want to do the coolest jobs. Which, let's face it, there's all part of us inside that have joined the emergency services to do that thing that we saw on TV. Yeah. And there's a reason for that because it's a fantastic job and it's a great way to spend your time.
You've hit that chapter in life now where you just had a second child. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Your eldest is 5 now?
Charlie is 3 and a bit.
3, sorry.
3 and a bit.
I don't know why I said 5. 5 weeks is the other one.
5 weeks is Oliver.
That's why I've got 5 in my head. What's it like being a dad?
Being a dad is amazing. It's great. It's that cliche thing of you don't quite understand unless you are a dad.
No, you don't.
You get that. And I've heard a couple of sayings recently where it's like a heart transplant, except your heart is taken out of you and it's put in this other kid. And suddenly you're like, well, that's me. And especially with Charlie, because it's a spitting image. Ginger hair, same colour eyes, same paleness. Yeah. Absolutely crazy in certain respects. So suddenly I look at him and it's like looking in the mirror and you think this is in part it's a second chance of trying to do things a little bit differently. It's a way of me creating him and then letting him fly to do his own life. Every time he jumps off the sofa or off a step, I think he's going to hurt himself. There's that stress. But then I've trained him to jump off things and climb up things from an early age. Yeah. It's great, but it is stressful. It's hard work. For people listening that are parents, you kind of get it. I don't need to tell you. For people that haven't got kids, you're probably telling me to shut up. We don't want to hear it. But it's that thing of, you've got this kid that is reliant on you for teaching and education, but also you love him so much. And then he'll come and kick you and bite you and tell you to go away. And he's got this thing where now he's elbowing. Where have you learnt that from? So it's great, and having Oliver is fantastic because it's he's a spitting image of Charlie when he was young. It's like I'm going back in time 3 years. There's another Charlie. There's an Oliver who's so cute and tiny and looks just like his brother.
Was it a conscious decision to have both the children?
Yes, I'd say it was planned, but it really was planned. We would like 3 years in between each kid. It didn't take long to get pregnant, so we're really lucky to get pregnant quite quickly. Everything went well, so again we're thanking our lucky stars for that. And it kind of fitted in with our little bit of a plan. I mean, as a dad, you have a lot of responsibilities, but hats off to Georgina and any lady who's gone through that.
How did you manage that? Because there obviously must have had a conversation at some point to say who's going to take time off. Obviously you've got to do the baby bit, Georgina. I can't grow it. I mean, but after that, how's it going to work?
I think Georgina wants to, and we've talked about it, she wants to go back full time after her kind of year off that we get in the NHS. So she'll go back, and she was a little bit worried about losing her kind of level on the playing field a little bit. She doesn't want to de-skill, she wants to keep moving and keep progressing forward. And
is there lots of people hungry for that? What's the competition like? Is there limited spaces and people are trying to go for promotions and stuff like that? Yes,
I think there is. There is a triangle, and it's not kind of an awkward one. It's a one where there is, I think she went for a job and there were 8 candidates during interview for like a development role. I remember when I joined, there were 4,000 applicants for 400 jobs.
Okay.
I think something like that. There is a lot of people that would love to be in the ambulance service or the emergency services, which is great. And then once you're in that, there is only a finite of opportunities to get into management or critical care. HEMS is a really competitive job, not because we need to be the best, but we need to deliver the best care. And if we're going to pick 10 out of 100, we're going to make sure they're the best of the best ones that go for it. So although it's competitive, and I wouldn't put myself through it at the moment because of what's going on, it's a way of upping your skills, ready for an interview. And if you don't get it, you understand where the next level is. So you kind of understand, I've talked to people that have gone for the interview, you realise, they want you to know everything. They want you to be the best paramedic that you can be before they train you to be a critical care paramedic.
Okay.
And I was thinking about this on the way up. If you were just given a job, everyone gets in. Yeah, you can do that. It's fine. We've got loads of people, loads of places. You would feel like you're just another person. If you're funneled,
hollow victories.
Yeah, and if you're put through an assessment, whether it be physical, clinical, knowledge, once you get through that, although it's very stressful to begin with, suddenly you go, I really deserve to be here. I was put through the most amount of stuff that I could be, and I deserve to be here. So I think it's warranted to have that kind of competitive and testing of ability in a way to get there.
So she's taken that year off twice now, and she wants to do it again.
Yes, at the moment things could change. It's early days, but she would love to have 3 kids. She's come from a family with lots of people and children in. Her sister's got lots of children, so whatever happens, I need to plan to make sure that we've got the financial stability, emotional stability to have another kid, and I'm fine with that. I love kids, and it's the time is the issue, as we've probably spoken about before.
We've got 3. It's a lot.
How do you split your time up? How do you decide? How do you prioritize?
Some massive age gaps in ours as well. So you have to be very intentional about you can't really do the same thing with everybody. Family days out and stuff like that kind of work, but it is focused around usually 2, if not 1 of them.
Yeah.
And I always say children don't want a lot of your time, they want a lot of your attention. So when you're with them, be with them. I'm not as interested as I think I am. My daughter wants an hour or maybe a little bit more of intention, maybe less, of just intentional focused time with her, playing a game together, doing some homework together, doing a thing. And then again, you almost have to be disciplined to change gears and move on to the next child. And there's a very few things you can do together. Your boys are, age caps aren't too far apart, not as far as ours, but I think again, it's that, you have it with your partner. You might only have 40 minutes together at the end of the day. You've all been busy. You might get half an hour. So when you've got that half an hour, don't be on your fucking phone. Be present with that person. Ask yourself, what would 100% attention look like? Physically, emotionally, my body language. What would look like if I give this person all of my attention? You'd be surprised how they respond if you can both give each other, just sit cross-legged on the bed opposite each other with your clothes on to start with, and just give that person 100% of your attention. Have a conversation. practice active listening, paraphrasing. Show that person you're listening to them. It doesn't take long to make a real impact. And I try and do that with my kids. Don't do it perfectly, I'm sure. I'm away working a lot, but I'll go into my daughter's room and we'll go into the den underneath the bed and we'll sit there and I give it all of my attention and try and ask open-ended, insightful questions. Don't ask closed questions. Was your day good? Yes, no. You know, did you do maths today? No one gives a fuck. Do you know what I mean? She doesn't give a fuck. Yeah? Ask questions. What was the best part of your day? What was something interesting you learned? Do you know what I mean? You know, who's your best friend at the minute? What are you enjoying about going to? You know, just people know this shit, and this is obvious. Probably sounds stupid listening to it, but I'm like,
it needs reaffirming.
Questions.
I think it needs reaffirming because you get to a certain stage, and children, work, other things. It just kind of it melts a little bit of your day out a little bit. I definitely need to re-listen to what you're saying there because I think it is important, and it's something that I need to work on, definitely.
In our jobs, we ask a lot of closed questions intentionally because you need to siphon out information quickly to realize what's wrong, to be able to go through that decision-making process very quickly. Careful not bleed that into your private life. Do you know what I mean? Give it time. Let the person explore their answer is what I find personally most effective with people, certainly with my children, with the teams that I lead and stuff like that. Give them time, give them attention, guide them a little bit. But yeah, if people just Google open versus closed questions and challenge yourself. Say, I want to sit down for tea with my family tonight. I'm only going to ask open-ended questions. Just do it as yourself. Just a little game. Yeah, it's hard. You'll realise how hard it is.
Yeah.
What people often do is they fear silence as well. So I'll go, Brad, what did you do today? And then before you've even answered, I'll go, did you do PE? What the fuck are you doing there? You just closed the question down. You just closed the question. And now they're just going to go, yeah or no.
Yeah.
No, they're not really engaging with me. Okay. What did you have for lunch? Did you have pizza again? Oh, no, stop. Just leave it. Ask the open-ended question and sit there in silence and let that person explore. It's the who, what, where, how, why, when. It's those questions. As obvious as it sounds, but just try it. I promise to people, you'd be surprised. It's hard. Because sometimes people feel like they're doing it wrong if someone's struggling to answer, but that's okay. It's because they're having to engage their brain to think of an answer. It's not just a yes/no response. I'll stop myself going too much further down a rabbit hole, but yeah, stuff like that is what I found most effective with my kids. And I find that in life as well, asking yourself better questions. If you ask a better question of yourself, you get a better answer. If you just go, why am I making no progress in work? Your mind will go, because you're shit, because you're crap, you're stupid, you didn't go to school properly, everyone knows you're not very good, you're crap. Yeah? If you ask a better question, you'll get a better answer out of life. And that works with people as much as it does with your career or anything like that. So, and podcasting is probably a great example of it. Learn how to ask a better question.
100%. I'm going to pause now to think about it.
Pause, take a break.
If I mentioned before, I've trying to get as much content out as possible, and I had to go at a podcast. I've got 2 episodes out of hopefully millions. But sitting down with Georgina for 3 hours was so important. It was great, and hopefully we can do it more, because with a kid which she's feeding, or we've got the TV on, Chicago Fire. What's happening next? There's the thing happening. And, there's other things involved. When you have a table and some microphones, and you're just sitting, that's what you need, but you need that with your family. And I think that's where, when you set at the table for...
amazing.
We don't
release them.
You just
I'm doing them so that when she's 18, we can listen.
I was going to say, these 100 you're nearly at 160 episodes, aren't you?
Yeah, we've got more than that, but that's we number some of them and don't number others.
Right.
We're probably around 200, but yeah.
I mean, it's such a fantastic catalogue.
It's getting there. It's getting there. And that's just my own self-deprecation. I'm sure it's there. It's further along than some. It's not as far as others. I was on a podcast called Behind the Shield recently. It's a massive podcast in America. James Geary, great guy. If people want to go check that out. And he's up to, he's like 600 and something episodes. But he's not me and I'm not him. And I could have all the same guests and it'd be an entirely different show. So be content in what you're doing. But sorry I interrupted you. Yeah, we're up to about 160, but having those conversations with people. I often say just make a fake podcast to people. You don't have to put it on. I genuinely don't actually do anything.
Yeah,
just
put
your
your
phone
practice
in between yourselves.
And don't press record and just
focus on what it's like to have a conversation intentionally.
But I guess that was what at the dinner table people did is you'd sit down and you'd slow down a little bit and you'd eat and you'd talk, and we definitely miss that a little bit. And with kids, they're all clambering around, but I guess if you can use something as a kick-off, careful not to front load it, but to be like, right, this is when we're going to talk. Definitely need to do that more. I mean, there's lots of things that I think I've done well. I was trying to think about what I've done well for this podcast, and there's things that I need to work on, and that's fine. But yeah, I think talking about things, asking questions. Even if you gave me this sheet of paper, emailed it to me, and I just sat there and read it, this would help me loads with businesses and things. And if you were to send out a self-assessment form to people as like an employee thing, they would probably benefit from it. I mean, we all love filling out surveys online and stuff. It's
self-reflection.
It's self-reflection,
self-awareness.
Yeah. And I think if you get into a mode where that is a good thing, because when I was at school, I hated anyone giving me criticism or saying you didn't do that well, you need to do this differently. I took it as a personal attack, and that's where I felt short. But going back to what's going on in the education system, I hope that they're teaching people how to learn and teaching people how to accept criticism and critical thinking and how to better themselves. Well, I hope, if not, we'll have to do it ourselves for our kids.
So what made you want to start Rescue Fit?
Rescue Fit it's lots of different things. I think I was trying to think about the best way to answer this in a simple term. Our tagline is frontline functional fitness. So I want to be able to provide fitness training, fitness coaching, physical competency assessment, tuition and facilitation, lots of big words there, for people that either want to get into the emergency services or that are there at the moment and need a little bit of help with their fitness levels or even their health and well-being, if I can offer those services as well.
There's a lot of them people.
Yes.
So how did you know it was A, something you wanted to be interested in, and B, how did you know it was a need?
You can either think I can create this and find a market for it, or you can think there is a market for this, I'll create it. And whichever one you choose, I think it's all right. But for me, in the hazardous area response team in HART, we're assessed every 5 months on our physical fitness level. So it's called a PCA.
Is there any fitness levels to become a normal paramedic? Do you actually do a fitness test?
I think it's not really, I wouldn't say it's a fitness test personally. It's more of is your grip strength enough to hold this amount? Can you do touch your toes, strength, flexibility test? They don't do a bleep test as like a standard entry. They don't do a lot of things that we do in HART as like a fitness assessment. In some universities, they will have a proper, right, you've got to go up these stairs with this amount of bags and this amount of time. You've got to be able to do it. Your heart rate's got to be this and that. So it's creeping in a little bit, but it's nowhere near fire service level or police level, I think. I think the police have got to do a bleep test just as a standard officer.
It's low, though. I mean, and ours is too low. Ours is too low. Ours is
8.6.
8.6, something like that now.
So what do you think HART's is? So we do BA, but not very often. So I think it is 5.1, which is the same as the police general entry.
Is that just over walking?
It's a jog, but it's not. I'm perfectly fine with that. I think the last one I did was 9 or 10 on the bleep test. So it depends which way you look at it. If you're critically thinking, well, this should be a VO2 max kind of thing to test and to work out, or you can say, right, well, they need to be able to run. We don't run in the ambulance service, and that, especially with kids. So it's a little bit of a contention, but someone said we need to have a test to make sure our operatives are safe in the environment that we're going to send them. That means they need to be able to carry 24 kilograms, a BA set, plus other stuff if they're carrying things, especially if they're trying to lift a patient. They need to have a certain level of cardiovascular ability because they're going to be running up and down on jobs. It's a bit of the employer needs to make sure the operatives are safe, and then it's also we need to make sure our operatives can do a good job, or at least the base level.
Do you have any annual health tests or anything like that? Like, I know things like BMI aren't really great metrics, but do they?
No, I'm not a big fan of BMI.
No,
but,
it's crap.
So in HART, every 5 months we have to do a PCA, so physical competency assessment. We've got to complete 4 or 5 scenarios. It used to be just one scenario within, say, 14, 15 minutes. But the new one is that we have to complete 5 or 6 scenarios. They're all kind of timed. They're all different kind of skill sets. and that was devised to kind of mimic what we're meant to be doing. So there's like a BA1, a ballistics type one, so a marauding terrorist attack one, so where we're wearing body armor and kit. So they're trying to recreate little scenarios to make sure we can do those things, and that's every 5 months. The ambulance service, you just got to get in, and as long as you've got a certain grip test, then you're okay.
Really?
That kind of
because some of them are
bit.
absolutely stunning, but there's some guys and girls that have completely let themselves go in the fire service and in the paramedics. But I think you just get away with it more so in the trust, because you don't get we get annual fitness tests. They don't.
Yeah.
And even ours aren't high enough. They still get some absolute mess.
Yeah.
Of some people with physique of a melted wheelie bin. Some people, bless them, and I wouldn't have faith in them dragging me out of a building.
It's a little bit both. I try to be careful with my words because
I should probably do that.
As someone that wants to try and train people as this new venture, I'm very empathetic and understanding. People want to do this job, and they've got other things that are getting in the way, and some people let themselves go. I'm very lucky that I've always had a thin frame, but I love eating crap. I love eating crisps, chocolate, loads of stuff. I'm just very lucky, I guess, in a way that I'm very thin frame, although that gave me other insecurities, the other way of the scale. But at some point, you've got to say, the employer's got to say, for you to be safe and have good well-being in this job, you need to be of a certain standard.
Yeah.
The thing with the ambulance service is we drive somewhere to someone's house, we sit on the sofa while we ask them questions, then we put them on an ambulance and drive to hospital where we sit there for hours. So when people say, this job must keep you really active, it doesn't. It keeps our brain really active, and although that burns calories, we're still putting in too much probably than we're exerting.
Yeah. Probably in that surplus most days.
It's difficult because if you say, right, every now and again we're going to let you do some physical activity in the normal ambulance world, well then we've got calls going on, and this is the problem.
You don't get gym time or anything, do you?
HART we do, so we're on a base with gyms because we've got to pass a fitness assessment. So they've written that into the procedures and funding to allow us fitness equipment because we've got to do it every 5 months. What we don't get is allotted, prioritised time, because that's not part of the scope of practice as a HART paramedic.
Yeah.
So we've got skills, we've got to do BA wares, things like that, but we don't have allocated gym time in our trust.
Okay.
Which I'd like to change, but because we're not busy all the time, we find time to go into the gyms. Whereas a normal ambulance paramedic or ambulance crew, they are out the door as soon as they signed on. They get a lunch break most of the time, although that's delayed. It could be at the wrong end of the day. Or they don't get a lunch break and they go home early because they have about half an hour at the end. But they're on the job all day, every day. I mean, you used to sign on an ambulance, come back a couple of times, get a drink, cup of tea, then go out again. People that I'm talking to now, they are out all day and they're driving all over the place, different areas of the counties. There is no time for physical fitness while getting paid. I thought of this thing the other day called Fitness Fridays. I'd love to be able to offer free fitness sessions for companies in my local area as long as their staff are being paid. So here's the thing.
You need to get paid as well, though. You do. I know you got to do a lot for free to grow a business. I get that. I've done that. I did boot camps for 5 years. Just make sure at some point you got to do something for free to start with. Sorry, I don't want to sell myself short, but wouldn't it be great if I could? What you're doing is of value.
What if I could convince companies that are just normal companies to send their staff out at 4:00 on a Friday, pay me maybe to run fitness sessions while they're getting paid.
If they did it collectively, it won't cost them much. That one company gives you 20 quid, another company gives you 20 quid. That's it. It's fine.
So that's an idea. But the basic premise is employees have to make sure that people have a good set of well-being while they're being paid on the job. If that extended to physical fitness and
there is tangible benefits for them. There's a return on that investment. Yeah. It is massive.
Team building. They send people.
My mum's company. They have yoga instructors come in 5 days a week.
That sounds great.
They have people come in and do things on site for their members of staff. And we're in one of my studies here, and I always work at a standing desk, and I have like a 20-minute timer. Every 20 minutes I'll drop and do something.
So you do like a
5-minute
5-minute split?
Yeah, or probably even 5 minutes off. It's usually just like 2 minutes. Just to change gears mentally, I will do something physical, and then I'll walk into the kitchen, get a drink, come back and do another 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It also makes me accountable to actually getting shit done, because I know I've only got 20 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
And the break's only small. It might be 30 press-ups, it might be whatever. It's not I'm not going to go do an hour's workout. I'll do that in the morning or whatever. But yeah, breaking your day up and splitting things. Otherwise, people just want people to be at work for 8 hours, but doing 8 hours of fuck all half the time, just trying to avoid the boss all goddamn day, and that's exhausting in itself. Versus, guys, get your shit done this morning, you can go out and do half an hour's this, half an hour's that, and people might think that's micromanaging or it's insulting, but I think there's massive benefits in it, and people stay there longer, they'll be off sick less, they'll be off for stress less. Appreciating and understanding those benefits that come with that is a massive part of it for me.
If I continue with this venture, which at the moment 100% on it and full steam ahead, if I can find a way of convincing big companies or even the NHS to, rather than think, well, we'll fix the problem once it's a problem, to look into back injuries, look into fitness levels, to prolong the staff, because what I'm worried about, and some people are worried about, is retiring at 68 in the ambulance service and then dying within 5 years because the body's run on cortisol and adrenaline, or dying at the end of just before retirement, because you're running on.
Most of them have been medically retired before that, just because their back and their body just gives out.
So either they go, well, that's going to happen, we'll just get more people in, or they think, right, well, we've got to prolong our staff and help them do their job better and help them the retirement. Because at the moment, although I'm hopefully going to start a business that gives me some more options, if I was to stay in the ambulance service, I'd be working till I retire, and then now I can travel, now I can do this, now I can relax. Whereas if I've only got 5 years after I retire, or 5 years until my back goes, that's a worry, especially in the service where you're lifting things, carry chairs downstairs, patients. It's a worry.
What are some of the areas that you think people could make some easy improvements in their life? Some of the habits or behaviours that people could have those marginal gains or even significant gains that wouldn't be too much of a ball ache to implement?
Do you mean in like private, like in
people
their own
in their
time?
day-to-day lives, yeah. Whether
Day-to-day.
that's something they do at home or habits and behaviours, whether the way they eat, the way they drink, things that you see when you're on the job or things you see in the emergency services that would be low-hanging fruit for people.
When we drive around and we need lunch, the easiest thing to do is to stop in at a garage and just pick up whatever you want, and it's kind of like impulse food. When you go shopping and you're hungry, so instead of using your shopping list, you go, well, I'll get that, but I'll also get all this stuff. This looks amazing. Yeah. It's you're driving around hungry and you're knackered and you need chocolate and sugar and caffeine to get you through the shift. I need to work on it a little bit, but meal prep, I know there's meal prep companies and things like that, but having a set idea of what can travel in an ambulance and still be enjoyable, because we've all had sandwiches that we don't want to eat because they're warm and soggy. Yeah. Ambulances have fridges in them now, so you can keep things cool. Okay. I think there's a better way of having your diet set out, but the problem is we're doing 12 hours on the ambulance, so either you eat really early and you graze during the day, or you have a lunch at 3:00, and then you get home and you think, well, I can't cook anything because I can't be bothered, I'll just throw something in the oven or the microwave. It's a real difficult thing, and I've not hit it on the head yet. And as someone that wants to build a team rather than do everything myself, if I can find someone that's really on point with creating meal plans, creating habits, because that's what we are. We're constructs of our own habits. If we can find a way to help people on a 12-hour shift to keep their calories either maintenance or in a deficit, or surplus if they're building muscle, of course, or just to keep it where they want it to be. But as soon as you hit a night shift, I know what it's like. You think, I need caffeine, I need chocolate, because people are surviving their shifts. They're not doing their shifts or working them, they're surviving them. Yeah. Especially on an ambulance where you are out all night, every night. It used to be you get a couple of hours kip, 2 hours maybe, maybe an hour, maybe even half an hour on your lunch break. But at the moment, they're getting drilled, you know, and they're out all night. So to have to feed yourself during that, you know, part of me thinks this job isn't really very good for us. It's a fantastic, rewarding job, but night shifts, eating patterns.
Yep.
Where do you store your food?
Thrown completely out of your natural cycle. You know, your body doesn't know when to rest, doesn't know when to sleep. It's eating is completely to shit. Your cortisol levels are all over the place. Testosterone depletion is terrible. You're completely out of sync from what you should be naturally. You know, when we think about that circadian rhythm, it's not built for it. You know, and there's so much studies gone into how much shift work shortens your lifespan. And also the act of being a frontline responder and the way in which we get tipped out. It's not just like when I used to work in a factory, it's that constant spike of adrenaline as well.
Yeah.
And you can get that fatigues and really damages people. And you can have that empathetic exhaustion as well. It's probably something I wanted to ask you about you and Georgina as well, to be fair.
Mm.
How do you maintain that muscle of empathy when you're both dealing with things on the front line, dealing with some really horrific and tragic incidents, just really sad stuff, you know, when you go to people's homes and they're in real socioeconomic depravity and just not got their shit together and life's coming apart at the seams. How do you then, maybe, you know, I should definitely sit down with Georgina because maybe a question for her, not that she's better or worse than you, but like women tend to be more empathetic. But like when I hear girls having conversations, if one of them works in the emergency services, I think they must struggle to talk to their mate, Sarah or whatever, about like, oh yeah, you know, I've got this friend at work and she's not very nice to me and she like doesn't invite me to lunch. And Johnny would be like, fuck is this?
Yeah,
this
is
pointless.
There's first world problems.
Bullshit. You know what I mean? I struggle just talking to anybody about that sort of stuff. How do you guys deal with that? Do you have many friends that aren't in the emergency services? Do you socialise with people that have other? And again, they're no better or worse problems, but you're dealing with life and death every day.
The short answer is we don't socialise with many people that aren't in that circle. Not because we filter them out, because we don't, you know, it doesn't work. It's more because when you've only got a certain amount of time on your plate, what goes out is certain things, and it's easier to socialise with people that are off the same time as you. So the other shift workers, people that work at your base, people that understand it a little bit.
Get it a bit, yeah.
So, you know, our circle of friends involves paediatric nurses, other paramedics, policemen, a lot of people. The other thing is that they date people in other services. So you'll have a good friend that's a paramedic that you've gone through training with, and they're with a fireman or they're with a policeman. So you kind of end up in this blue light community.
You keep saying that. You've got to say firefighter.
So
that's me being that guy.
You keep saying fireman. Yeah, I know. It's a really good point, and bring me up as much as you can, because as much as people say woke and PC, we've got to start changing.
It's an easy low hanging fruit.
Well, it's a bit like ambulance driver, so that's one all.
Yeah, it probably is. I would love, sincerely, let's try and hook it up at some point. I would love to sit with a couple of girls that work as nurses and paramedics, and really have that, because I've done it with firefighters, and I just think it'd be a totally different lens of the job from them. I'd love to sit down. We'll have to hook that up at some point afterwards. I wanted to ask you about how you've managed to build the confidence to be public with trying to start a business and stuff like that, because that is one of the things that really stops people from doing it, putting themselves out there, feeling like a dick, feeling like people are going to laugh at them, take the piss out of them, all that sort of stuff. How have you dealt with that? Has it been a challenge for you? Like you said, when you were a kid, you did some stage stuff, but I imagine, like you said, you were a long-haired ginger kid. You know, there will have been stigmas attached to that. Yeah,
definitely was. I was trying to think back, you know, has it always been this? Have there been lows and ebbs of what's gone on? I think I remember when I was in little school, so, you know, primary school, I was pretty loud and pretty out there. Secondary school hit me because I was small and thin and, you know, ginger. That's just the way that is. I think I got it back again with music. I think, although I was only there for a couple of years, music really saved me in terms of bringing my character back out again. And then to be an outdoor instructor, you can be quiet and reserved and a bit of an introvert, but to give someone an experience of the outdoor adventure and to really show that the outdoors is amazing, you have got to be that kind of person
lean into it, haven't you?
Who loves their job. You know, every day you'd be like, either tired or hungover, and you're like, right, slap your face, game time. I've got to show these people, I guess, a show in a way.
Yeah.
You know, they're paying money to come and experience this amazing thing. If you're there like, yeah, this is the third time I've done this today, which occasionally that crept through, you know, it's not going to be a great product for that person.
Yeah.
So I guess there's people that do it on stage or on TV. They dig deep down and bring that personality out, and it's not a fake thing. It's just that is inside. It's just covered up by tiredness
it's
or
being
hungriness.
a professional as well, to an extent.
Yeah.
You know, I have it sometimes. You know, obviously in all the work I do in the emergency services, but then I mean, we've sat straight now for 2.5 hours nearly. You know, non-stop, and that's
like that.
You've got to genuinely be interested in somebody to be able to do that. And it's not me blowing my own horn. There's people who do this far better than I do, but that's not easy. And when people are dealing with all their own stuff, that's why I think when you saw the explosion of podcasts through COVID, so many people of that will drop off. A, because it's a hell of a workload, and B, because you've got to really be interested in it. You've got to really care about it. But for you, putting yourself out there publicly
Social
to do
media,
something like this,
I mean, it's TV used to be the thing, but it's not that now. It's YouTube. It's, you know, that is the front face of media.
Yeah.
Although it's partly necessity, I think you'd really struggle to run a kind of venture without the massive advantage of social media and having content. I think I enjoy it as well. So before Rescue Fit Media, I had a YouTube channel called Chalk Bag Blues. That was to do with rock climbing. Chalk Bag Blues is where, you know, you climb something and you didn't do so good. You know, it's like the blues element.
Yeah.
But Chalk Bag Blues was, I could do this YouTube thing to either earn revenue or followers, or, you know, just start some kind of momentum and use that as, you know, who knows, something new, something where I could.
So you've always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial itch.
Either entrepreneur or, I don't like the word famous, but just spreading my character in some way. And don't get me wrong, I can be really grumpy and tired and struggle to talk to anyone, but there is part of me that would love to go and talk on a stage or go and talk to someone, because at school I had extreme anxiety in is it, what do you call it, the morning time where you have like a group assembly, morning assembly.
Yep.
So you'd go in, you'd have 100 people, and because I was in the first tutor, I would sit at the front and I would spend the whole half an hour thinking everyone's looking at me, everyone's staring at me. If I move, someone's going to see that I'm moving. So extreme anxiety of like social interaction, and that carried through most of secondary school until, as I said earlier, I just gave up caring. But it really hindered me. So to go from that to, the first thing you do as an outdoor instructor is talk to 10 people. Right, This is the session. Then you start moving forward a little bit in your kind of seniority, and you do the safety brief. So you're talking to 20 or 30 people, and then moving up to talking to 100 people, I think at its most, or 100 and 150 people. And as I moved up to operations manager, I'd have 30 staff working under me. So to go from that socially inept kind of high anxiety person to then bring out that 10-year-old again, that kind of 6-year-old of me, is great. And I feel that in me, and I'm quite happy to put myself on YouTube, on social media. Of course, I don't want to look like a dick. No one does, but it gets to it.
We all do that.
It gets to a point where
know
you think,
your audience. That's all.
You know, at some point you're going to say something a little bit silly. Someone's not going to agree with it. You know, you either embrace it and use it to your advantage, which is the main thing. I think it's a real big advantage. Or you don't, and that's fine either way. You know, there's a lot of people I know that aren't on Facebook at all, and that reminds me of when I was on MySpace.
Yeah,
Facebook turned up, and I was like, I don't need that. I don't need Facebook. I've got MySpace.
Yeah,
I don't need a better phone. Or text. That's fine. And it gets to the point where you think, well, I don't need it, and then everyone else is on it. Either you give in and join, or you don't, and both is fine. And going back to what I used to think of myself, I'm quite content with how I was before, but now I want to be something different. I want to be, I am a wantrepreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur just yet. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to create businesses. I want to create a team that we work together for like a group purpose, which is to provide this service, Rescue Fit, to everyone in the community and the public. So I guess I'm quite happy to be online.
Yeah.
I think as we said about children, becoming online, and they have their own they call it personal brand now. You've got to be careful in some respects, but I think in others it's a great opportunity to meet other people, get your opinion across. And in terms of Rescue Fit, for me, content is really big and key to try and get as much kind of time in front of people so that they get to trust me. There was something the other day I heard where if you build 7 hours of what they call trust in inverted comments, so you might have like a post about something. You might be like, "Oh, I work in the ambulance service and this is happening," or a tweet that, "Oh, I agree with that. So that's a really good thing." Once you build up enough time, people get to trust you. And I am a kind of trustable person, and what I want to do is provide a service. So as long as I can get that across, that what I'm doing is to help benefit my service users, then social media is great, and I think it's a great thing to have.
How do you stay motivated through it sometimes? Because it's hard to see the investment on the return on the investment of all of your time and all of that sort of stuff. How do you deal with setbacks, and how do you deal with understanding how long things take sometimes?
Failure is something you've got to use to your advantage. I used to be so worried about doing things wrong, doing something and failing it, or it not being very good. Whereas now, especially with social media, you've got to put a video out, and if it tanks or doesn't do well, right, why didn't it do well? Why is it not very good? Why are people angry? Maybe that I've said something. You've got to use that. So I think it's important to just try things out and give it a go, really.
It's consistency, isn't it, as well? You've just got to keep rolling the dice. You know what I mean? Some people get so worried about doing it right or doing it perfect that they procrastinate. And procrastination is really just that perfectionist pretending that they're trying to be better and better, and really they're just scared to death of making a mistake. But you've got to be willing to do it. Yeah. And you've got to be willing to just keep throwing yourself in, keep throwing yourself in. And you're almost filling up the dam, like you say. It's all those touch points, that 7 hours analogy of building trust, building reliability, building consistency, becoming part of somebody's routine. You're reliable. You're something that when they come to it, it's going to be there, like the podcast, a weekly thing or whatever it might be. You become part of somebody's schedule. You become part of somebody's ritual. You become a habit. Something that's reliable that they can go to, that's trusted and is going to be there. And I think that's hard for people because we live in a world where we want to see quick results. We want to see instant reward, instant gratification. We want the thing right now. We order it off Amazon, it should be here today. It should be here yesterday. Yeah. Whereas most things take time. Most things that are going to be of value. Some people look at like the Joe Rogans of the world. I don't know, 10 something ridiculous years. Longer than that, I think they've been doing the podcast now. Yeah. It's that analogy, as we said at the beginning of our conversation about the musician. It's the 10-year overnight success. You've just got to keep filling up the dam and putting yourself in a million different situations where you have an opportunity to demonstrate your values, demonstrate your morals, and have the patience to be able to say the same message again and again and again and again and again, because it's going to be heard in a different way, in a different fashion, by a different person every single time.
But going back to your other question about free content in a way, I definitely listened to someone that was producing some really great rock climbing content, and I'd be like, oh, when's the next podcast out, when's the next thing out, so I can get more information. And he was saying, I keep putting out this stuff for free, and everyone's giving away free content. They're giving away their best advice, their best stuff for free, and there's no monetary reward to begin with. Why are we doing this? And it as a new business creator and a content creator especially, I think people would struggle to see, well, do I do it free for a year and then try and get adverts or sponsorship? Do I do it for, at what point am I spending more money on my time than I am gaining from it? Yeah. And it's a difficult one to say. And if my other half said, well, at what point is this going to pay off? I would struggle to say when. I've got short-term goals to make sure it will work for us. But for someone that's starting content creation, it's such a buzzword at the moment, or someone that is giving up their time to create something, create momentum, it is a very difficult line to say, well, hold on a minute, at what point do I pull the pin and say this isn't working, I need to move on to something else? But consistency, quality, but like building up quality, I think is really important. Yeah. So if I film a random video and put it online, if it's really poor quality, at least I'm trialing things and experimenting and getting it going. But I remember my first video on my other channel, I wrote a script. I had a storyboard, so I'll have these shots here, and I'll have the camera angle here, and then I'll have an intro, a hook, a start, middle, finish, and then I'll have an outro, and then I might have credits, or I might have. And to be honest, that 5-minute video, although it was produced really well, I reckon, all that information could have been a 30-second clip. And that's at the moment, things change so quickly. Between YouTube being 10 minutes is the best time, to hold a minute, 10 seconds is going to get you more views now. And you might think, right, this is important, this is what's going to get loads of reaction and views. I posted something a couple of weeks ago that I thought, right, I can't think of what to post. I found this random video of a helicopter. I'll chuck it on, and it's now got 2 million views, 10 million views, like TikTok 5 million and Instagram 5 million. I'm like, why are people watching this? I don't understand. It's just a random video. So you can never quite understand exactly what's going to hit, but you can slowly build up and consistency, and just putting yourself out there, I guess. But that goes with not just social media. If you're trying to get into the emergency services, and this is a big one for anyone listening that wants to get somewhere, if you don't apply in the first place, you're never going to even get feedback on why you didn't get in, let alone get in at all. You've got to consistently apply for different jobs, apply for different things that you want, and at some point, if you need some help, get it. But at some point, you'll get through, and you'll get that dream job that we both now do.
Man, I love it. I'm really excited about the next sort of 30 years of my life. I feel like I've made so many mistakes, successes, failures, all that sort of stuff over the last sort of 20 years. Super stoked, super fucking stoked. I feel so lucky of how young I still feel like I am. I'm 33, and I still feel like I'm a baby. I'm so excited. I've made some mistakes with my body, but I've made it through, so I'm lucky. I can keep doing a lot of stuff. I've learned a lot of stuff. I've got the energy, I've got the excitement, I've got the drive. I'm hungry for it. I'm fucking hungry for it, and I really enjoy it.
It's a drug, isn't it? It's a drug. I was thinking on the way up. I'm thinking, what can I talk about? And I'm like, you know what? This is a drug. Caffeine's a drug. I need that quite a lot at the moment. But in terms of what is buzzing my brain at the moment, I am so excited to be on this journey. I'm so excited to meet yourself. I'm so excited that I've got this thing going on. I mean, I've got 2 kids at home. That is a huge, big deal for me, and I love them so much. And to mold them into the best thing I can think they can be is amazing. But to also have this other kind of venture, this thing going on, is fantastic. And
this is part of molding them as well, though, because I always say, your kids don't just learn with their ears; they learn with their eyes. You telling them work hard, do this, do that, whatever, they will fucking watch you. They will see what you're doing.
He's always on the computer. He's always doing something, filming.
Where's Daddy today? What's Daddy doing? Oh, Daddy's doing this, and Daddy will come down. I can tell you about it. And I've been off and done my travels and gone down to London and interviewed this person. Or the kids have come and seen the gyms that we've owned, and they've come and worked at the pizza vans that we've had, and they've done all of that stuff with us. And some of it they'll be like, "Oh fucking, I just remember when we did that. And do you remember when you had that thing?" And I'll be like, "God, I remember that." And
can't believe I did that. Yeah, I can't believe we tried
Lily
that.
Registering athletes up at events that I've ran, and then she's going out handing stuff out, and then she's just all sorts of stuff, helping us set stuff up, helping us clean up after a long day's work, helping us count all the money, all of the stuff that we've done together. They soak it up, and they're like, wow. And Lily goes around and tells people about this bloody craziness, what I mean? So, oh yeah, Daddy runs a podcast, and people listen to it, and it's weird, but you've got to put yourself out there, and you should never be willing to ask them to do stuff. We ask kids to do some pretty scary shit. Do you know what I mean? Go and make friends with that person. Go to this club you've never been to. Go and learn this thing you know nothing about. It's fucking scary shit. You know what I mean? When did you, not you, but you know what I mean, the parents should be like, when did you become someone that doesn't need to do that? When did you pass the course that said you don't have to learn no more? You don't have to put yourself in uncomfortable positions no more. You don't outgrow that shit. It just becomes a different thing. So whether that's Georgina pushing herself in a career or having a family and growing in her life in that way, there's always something else where you can jump back into that river of growth, and you need to start swimming again. You've got to start growing. You've got to start climbing again. And I don't think you ever have to tap out from that, because that's what the kids are watching. That's what your children will learn from you. They'll learn. Have you stopped? Have you parked in life? Have you just fucking sat up on the side and gone, nah, I'm done now. I'm here for you. I'm here. I'm living for my kids. Living? What the fuck does that mean? Do you know what I mean? You got to live for you as well. So Yes, I 100% agree with you, mate. Strike that balance. You're there for your boys and your misses, but it's your life. You know, you've got to live it. That's what they'll see. That's what they'll learn. Share it with them. Take them with you. I think it's amazing to see what you're doing. What's the best place to people to get hold of you, or how do they reach out to you? How do they learn a bit more?
I try and be on every single social media that I can be. So I've gone from, I don't know if I need Facebook, to everything as much as I can. Try not to be too thin on the ground with things, but Instagram, you can find me, and TikTok, whatever your platform is, I should have a handle, which is usually at rescuefit.uk. I've got a website, which is www.rescue-fit.com.
We'll drop it in the notes below as well.
So yeah,
all the links will be there.
There'll be loads of stuff. But whatever your platform is, I'll try and be there to try and try and create some content that will help people and try and help people understand what it is I do and things for the future.
Dude, I sincerely would look forward to sitting down together in like a year's time and talking again and seeing what adventures you've taken and seeing where things have gone.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. It's great.
Beautiful. Thank you for your time, man.
Thank you, buddy.
Firefighters Podcast is a global podcast seeking to develop, inspire and motivate the world of the emergency services operators. Through a series of wide-ranging conversations celebrating those within our sector, we seek to encourage and support this incredible group of people. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield, and I speak with individuals from all walks of life who I sincerely believe can add value to or develop those who have chosen this life path. Please support your emergency services wherever you are in the world, and thank you for listening.